Oh, it looks like it's working now. Okay. I guess it just took a few minutes for the lag to be picked up, and we are going to put everything, hopefully, on mute so that I'm not getting distracted. Hi. Hello there. I see RLPITARD is in. I'm not sure what that word is. It's probably last name, right? Combination of initials and last name. All right, we're gonna get started. I just went live over on TikTok just to give myself a quick recap of what we were gonna cover tonight. And this live is just going to be a little bit more slow. I felt like I was on TikTok and it sounded like I was trying to do a sales pitch. But that's not what we're doing here tonight. We're gonna also fix this so that you're not just staring at a cut off head. Let's see if we can pull these back a little bit more so that we can get everything in the shot and you can actually see me. I think that would be probably more pleasant, no? Possibly. We'll see if we can do it. We'll see if that's a little bit better. Let's try it out. Live doesn't give us too much of an option to get things set up first. It just forces us to have a blank screen. Us, I refer to myself in the plural. It forces me to have kind of a blank screen. So I don't get to see, before I hit the live button, I don't get to see what the camera is looking at. All right, a little bit helpful. So tonight we're gonna be working on a project that is a soap crayon for children. Last week we did this basket of crayons, which are not made out of soap. These are made out of butters and waxes, and these are just bath crayons. So you find these at the store. And we covered this in last week's live broadcast, but this week we're doing the exact same project, but we're making them out of soap. So these are the actual soap crayons. Now there are 3 formulas that we're gonna post over at Cottage DIY in the bath goodies section, depending on your level of soap making. And we're gonna be doing a melt and pour version, a cold process, and a hot process version. And depending on how advanced you are with soap making is going to be how much control you have over the ingredients. So a melt and pour soap project is perfectly fine. Pretty safe. It's not anything crazy, but it's not a true soap, and it does contain more processed chemicals that come from a base soap product like this one. This is 2 pounds of melt and pour soap that comes, this particular one that we are using tonight comes from Crafter's Choice, and it is the premium ultra white. And again, not a true soap, but this is, when you see melt and pour soaps, pretty standard. It's pretty much what you're getting. This is the same thing that you would find if you went over to Michael's and over to the craft store and you want to make soap with the kids. A lot of times when we're switching over and we're doing a melt and pour project, sometimes people think that these are kid-friendly projects because we're not dealing with the lye and we're not cooking it in a hot process version, and it doesn't have all of the same sort of safety protocols. I never recommend any of these as kid-friendly products or projects to do with your kids, especially for the under 10 group. And that's because no matter what stage of soap making you're doing for a melt and pour project, you're still working with boiling temperatures. Not especially safe. There are way safer things that you can do working with sort of liquid things that you could pour into molds, like maybe say making chocolates or something like that. Something that other projects that are more kid-friendly. So this is a kid-friendly project in that once you're done making it, it's fantastic for them to use, but it's not a kid-friendly project for the making process. This is something that kind of you should be doing, unless your kids are a little bit older, but I'm gonna guess if they're over 10, they're probably not using crayons in the bathtub. So last week we went over the project on how we got the ideal version of a combination of butters and waxes to create our bath crayons. This week the formula is a little bit different. And again, one of the things that should stand out is that there are no surprises. If you're a soap maker and you see these ingredients, super simple stuff to make. For some reason, there's not a lot of information on the internet. There are not a lot of people who talk about how to make bath crayons or soap crayons. just a few ingredients, and it's all the stuff that you would be recognizing as intuitive, normal stuff. So again, with this, we use a 50-50 blend. Turns out not so much with the melt and pour. So one of the key factors is your soap, and then a lot of colorant, a lot of mica. The ones that seem to really work the best are the pigments, the iron oxides, the ultramarines, those pigment colors, those things that you would find actually incorporated in crayons. Now I'm using all mica blends that include aquamarines. They're pretty great colors. But if you're using those kind of fairy shaded micas, you're not going to get as good of a color transfer. So what I've done here in this particular batch tonight, I've made 6 different formulas with all of the predictable materials in different combinations. And we're going to show you a little bit of a demonstration on how those combinations go together and what is a better crayon when we're working with it. Each one of these, a different shape and different color, represents a completely different formula. Do we have them all out here? We have our pineapples, our flowers. I guess we don't need to have them all out, but... And the combinations that we're using are pretty much what you would expect. We've got our melt and pour. We're using a little bit of stearic acid to make everything nice and tight, or we could switch that out with some beeswax. We'll show you the difference between those two. And this is notes from last week. This is notes from this week. Beeswax, stearic acid. We skipped out on the kaolin clay. I saw tons of notes, not tons, I saw a few notes in a few places on the internet where people tend to add in kaolin clay to some of their bath crayon recipes, either the melt and pour or the regular wax ones. And we tried the bentonite clay last week. I don't have the kaolin. That would just affect the color. The bentonite clay would give you the same kind of texture of what the notes that these people are writing are talking about. I didn't have any good experience with the bentonite clay. I don't think that it benefits the formula in any way. And again, adding clay into the already pre-made soap, I can't imagine that that's going to benefit our crayon in any way. So I didn't even bother with that tonight because I'm just not interested. So really what we care about is how much mica do we put into our melt and pour soap, and how much of a wax and what kind of a wax is going to give us the best texture and the best color transfer. And the 3 most important parts when we're making our crayon are, I'm doing this off the top of my head, so color transfer, what gives us a really good color transfer, what wipes clean most easily. We don't want to leave any marks behind. Some of the commercial versions of bath crayons are impossible to scrub off the walls. Some of the things that they sell at Target and Walmart and stuff are, my son has an entire mural on the inside of his shower that his 5-year-old colored that he hasn't even bothered to scrub off because it just is not coming off, and he's just giving it time to come off. And that was from something I think he picked up at Target. So whether or not it wipes off, we want the best formula for that. What's the third one? Oh, and how well it holds together in your hand, right? The minute you put it in water, we don't want it to fall apart or moo apart. So we want the texture and the feel of it to feel like it's something that's working really well. So those are the 3 components. So what we've got going on here are a combination of melt and pour mica. Every single one of these has 1/4 of a teaspoon to 1 ounce of product that we've made. I didn't fuss too much with the amount of mica, and the reason is because 1/4 is about as much as we're going to get into 1 ounce of this soap before it starts to sink to the bottom and it stops saturating, and I'm just not getting any more of the mica in there. So that's about all we've got. That translates to about 3 teaspoons per pound of soap. It's a lot. So if you're a soap maker, then you know that typically you're going to be making your mica colorant, a really good strong colorant on average, is a teaspoon per pound of soap. After that, you kind of get some anomalies, or you get some other things that happen in your soap, and you can do it based on your experience, but recommended amount of colorant is on average a teaspoon per pound. With the crayons, we're doing 3 teaspoons per pound, and the more color you get in there, the more color transfer you get for your crayon. However, I'm finding that I can't really get more mica in there. It just doesn't melt. It kind of sinks to the bottom, and it's just not really doing anything better. So once we cap it off at 1/4 teaspoon per ounce, or 3 teaspoons per pound, or about there. You don't really need to do more than that. If you're still not getting a good color transfer for your crayon, then you have chosen the wrong color, and you want to, again, stick with the ultramarines, the big bright neons, and the things that are pigments, rather than those kind of fairy colors, those light dusty fairy colors. And we want to get those hardy colors. This one here, La Bamba Blue, Eye of the Tiger from, I believe, Nurture Soap. This one was Newtone Green. Again, it's one of the, is it an iron oxide? Pigment iron oxide. So, but also combined with other things, usually titanium dioxide to change the shade, and then some mica in there to make it dissolve better than the pigments. So that's it for the colorant. That's where we are. Now the next question is, how much stearic acid and what does it do? Or beeswax, and what's the combination between the two? Now typically, like we did over in this one over here, it's just occurred to me that you're not seeing as much as what I'm seeing over here. So we'll pull this over here, and I will turn the camera down so you can see what we're gonna be working with. But what was I saying? Typically, we did a 50-50 blend with this previous recipe. Now, if you're looking for the bath crayon recipe, what we did last week, this live will take over that live from last week, so you won't be able to see that anymore. However, all of the notes and the formula and the write-up is all posted over at cottagediy.com, and this is in the bath goodies category in the soap and cosmetic resource, in the soap and cosmetic category of cottagediy.com. This one, these are all in the bath goodie category. This one that we have in front of us that we're talking about tonight is going to be in the melt and pour section. It's not posted yet, but after we're done with this live tonight in a few hours, it'll be posted up there. So I'm gonna now come over and turn the camera down so that when I show you how the color transfer works and what formula we're working with, you can kind of get a good idea of what we're working with here. So let's just pay attention to our table. And so the question is, what combination of soap to stearic acid makes the best color transfer, wipes off the best, and also holds together really well? So our blue flowers, this is the order in the way they are in my notes on how I combine them together. The blue flowers is using La Bamba Blue. I'm going to tell you right now, out of all the ones that we're working on right now, you'll see the color transfer works great. This is not the best formula out of what we're working with, but what we're going to pay attention to is this is 70% melt and pour soap, 30% stearic acid. And you see how the color kind of skips a little bit? The color transfer's okay. It's fine. This will work as a bath crayon if you make it this way. It's not the best one. It also doesn't wipe off the best. So, and these are a little bit sticky to the touch. Again, this is it is soap. It's going to be sticky. We're not going to get a crayon out of this. It's going to be soap. It is 70-30. The next one is let's see, our blue cactus is 90%. This one surprised me a little bit. It's 90% melt and pour soap and 10% beeswax. So beeswax would be an alternate to stearic acid if you're looking for a more natural ingredient. However, keep in mind, this is melt and pour soap. It is not natural. It is a combination of unnatural ingredients. So beeswax is, if you check that out, you can just see, even as far away as you are, how much better that color transfer was. I'm going to tell you right now, this one doesn't wipe off the easiest. This one has fantastic color transfer. And it did surprise me. And it's not really because it's the beeswax, so hold on with that. So the beeswax one in this particular case worked better, but it's really because it's the percentage that we're using 90%. So 1/4 teaspoon of mica powder in there, and then 10% beeswax. So the next one on our list is an orange flower. This one, comparable to this one. Again, this one's a 90-10, and this one is 90% melt and pour, 10% stearic acid, and we're using Eye of the Tiger, and it's the same amount of mica. And what you see is there's this nice smooth color transfer, exactly the same as the beeswax. So it does not matter if you use beeswax or stearic acid if you're using a 90-10. formulation for your bath crayon. The color transfer is fantastic, but I'm going to tell you between these two, beeswax, stearic acid, this one wipes and cleans off your bath ceramic better. It doesn't stick on the grout as, these are both fine. This one doesn't stick on the grout either, but this one just wipes better. It's easier to clean. It's a cleaner. It's faster to clean. The next one are orange flamingos. This was a 70-30, so it's 70% melt and pour soap, 30% beeswax. Out of all of the formulas, you can see from where you are, it really is working just fine. It's not as good. This one's probably the least favorite one. The color transfer is not as good, and the beeswax does not wipe as well as the stearic acid. So this one's going to be like a little bit of effort to clean off your bathtub, and the color transfer is a little bit lighter. It feels fine. It feels perfect. It actually feels more like a crayon than it does soap, and essentially there's just more wax in it. And the other two are our green pineapples and our green flowers. Now, this one is the beeswax. This one is the stearic acid. These are 50-50 blends. Remember, our 50-50 blend of our butter, our non-soap bath crayon, which was the butter and the waxes, was the absolute perfect formula when we were making it the bath crayon that was just the butter and the wax that was not a soap product. But when we do 50% soap and 50% beeswax, or 50% soap and 50% stearic acid, the stearic acid one wins. Let me pick this up so you can see it a little bit better. The beeswax is almost, from where you are in the camera, you can't see the beeswax one at all. It's almost nothing. So again, the stearic acid at a 50-50, almost, not quite. Beeswax, no, this is absolutely useless. These are great for pretty decorations. Also, they are still soap, so you can wash with them. It's perfectly fine. You're gonna get a lot of sort of color transfer when you wash your hands, but not so much when you're trying to draw on the side of the tub or the kids are trying to draw on the walls. So our very best formula, as we end this up tonight, our very best formula is going to be these two, which it turns out it doesn't matter whether or not you use stearic acid or beeswax. It is a 90% melt and pour soap to 10% stearic acid. Melt it down, add 3 tablespoons to a pound of soap mixture, or 1/4 of a tablespoon to an ounce. Like, so if you're pouring these out and you want all different colors and you're making them independent, like separately, I think 1 ounce of product was 3 of these little guys. So every single one of these 1 ouncers made 3 kind of sortas, right? This one made 2. This one made 4. So it depends on what little molds you're using. But if you're using a crayon mold like this, which is not even a crayon mold, it is the it's the ice mold from IKEA. These are the ice things where you put in your soap bottle, you put into your soda bottles when you're, or your water bottles when you're out wanting to go into the tubes. Again, color transfer was fantastic. This is not the soap version. This is the wax and butter version. And again, the formula is over on the website at Cottage DIY. The video tutorial on how to make it, again, will also be curated and edited. To make these, it only takes a minute. So you can expect that the video tutorial is going to be about a minute long and you can just whip them out. But it's not meant to be a secret. It's just meant to be a resource for you over there. If you remember, the formulation is a 50 butter, 50 wax with stearic acid and emulsifying wax being the best waxes that were used per our experiments. There are 12 different formulas in this bucket, if you saw the live last night. So we tried beeswax, we tried stearic acid, we tried a little bit of bentonite clay, and we did all sorts of different proportions. Turns out that the best one for the butter, you see it's transferring onto my hands, but you would expect that would be perfectly fine. It's not like a product that you have to worry about because we would be in the bath as a child using this, so it's okay. If it gets on your hands, it's gonna wash right away. But the, we also tried mango butter. Shea butter will not work. Cocoa butter works better than mango butter, but they will both work interchangeably just fine. Stearic acid, beeswax, emulsifying wax, and a 50-50 combination between the butter and the waxes is where you're going to get the best crayon. The beeswax, again, just like with the soap crayon, has the least effective or the lesser effective color transfer, but they still work. So you can play with these, you can do whatever you want. But the soap, the Melt and Pour soap crayon is a 90-10 formula. The bath crayon that is not soap is a 50-50 formula. That's really what we're going to take away with this product. And we're going to do another series of cold process for next week, cold process crayons for next week. They'll be more advanced. And the reason why you might want to do a cold process crayon or a hot process crayon, which will be the following week, compared to the Melt and Pour ones, is if you are working on a product branding where everything's all natural, and you might possibly use the cold process, a cold process recipe, and substitute your waxes with more natural waxes like the beeswax. So we're going to work with that to see where we can get the most natural cold process formula, so that we could, you can fit that into a brand or fit that into the type of thing that you're trying to make for your people when you don't want to have any of the processed chemical type products. Aside from that, this is basically going to be your standard ingredient profile for anything that you buy at Target or Walmart or any of the stores. They're going to be a Melt and Pour version of a soap base, which is going to be more of a detergent and not really a true soap. And then it's going to be a high amount of colorant and something to keep everything solid and hard. And that's basically it for all of the information part of it. Now, if you have any questions, I just lost my battery on my laptop, so I can no longer see the live chat, and I cannot see the live chat on my phone, so I won't be able to answer any questions. However, if you do have a question about this and you would like to submit that to me, if you are a member at cottagediy.com, any members can log in and pop your question into the live chat that's playing next to this. That stays in perpetuity, so I'll see it throughout the next couple days or couple hours, and that will be answered. Or you can just post it directly into the activity feed. If you're a member, you'll know exactly where that is because it pops up everywhere. And if you are not a member, that's okay. You could join us on the free Facebook group, which is, off the top of my head, the Thermal Mermaid Soap and Cosmetic Facebook group. And that is free to join, and you can have the same discussion and have the same conversation and ask the exact same questions, and I will be happy to answer you on those questions over there as well. So if anyone is curious about, or if you missed any information based on how to make these products for your kids, this is my experience on how to get the best formula. We can talk about there are other types of notes. Oh, I did see one comment that's just popped up. And it disappeared just as fast as I could read it, so I'll go back and read that. But thank you for your comment, and I will go back and see what it was that you said just a few minutes ago. And yeah, so this is this formula here. We're going to be we have 2 more crayon formulas to work on, and this is, again, my experience. You may come across other places that promote these types of products, and they may do it differently. That's perfectly fine. I have not explored any other person's locked website, any place where they do this online, where they're selling their recipes. I haven't gone into those, partially because I don't want those recipes to influence what it is that I'm looking for, or sort of influence the kind of experiment that I'm kind of keeping my eye out for to see what I think is the best. And I think that I've successfully come across what I think works the best, and I don't know how that compares to anyone else's ideas about what they think is the best on the internet. So I haven't discussed these ideas with anybody. We just simply put variations of these combinations together and see what works the best based on those 3 criteria that I've already outlined. And I think that the 90-10 formula works the best. And then if you want to troubleshoot, or if you want to discuss curing or conditions or temperatures, things like that, you're welcome to come over and pop some questions into the Facebook group. the Thermal Mermaid soap and cosmetic making group, or over at cottagediy.com. If you're a member, you can pop your questions in over there, and I will of course see it. And of course, all the other members who are people who are working on these projects are also free to answer you and interact and put their comments and tell you what they think about formulas and recipes in real time. Maybe if they have a better idea, or if they don't like the suggestion that I've made, people are more than welcome to leave those comments as well. But I think this is basically all we're going to get. I think it's the best that we're going to get out of a melt and pour, a pre-made melt and pour, and a combination of micas and crayons. And that's it for tonight. Thank you for coming along with the live tonight. Here's our formula. Here's formula number 1. And we've got 2 more of these to complete before we finish our discussion on the bath crayons and the soap crayons, and then we will be moving over to another bath goodie and cosmetic topic. So you guys all have a good night, and if I missed anything, or if there was anything that we didn't cover, please remind me, and I'll make sure to answer anything that you might want to know about. All right, guys, have a good night. Hey guys, I just turned off the... Hopefully, I can see the chat tonight, but I'm going to have to move it so the feedback isn't going to be bothering you. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit because I see that the... I see that the camera's a little bit crooked, and I don't actually think that there's much I can do about it, but I think I'll try. Does that help us at all? Does it give us a little bit of a relief? All right, welcome into the live tonight. And I will have to mute all the sounds so that they're not disrupting us. Okay. Tonight we're doing bath crayons for Thermal Mermaid. Ooh. Let's do one more mute here. That will work. Hi, Judy. Well, I'll tell you what, the live streams are not exactly as curated as the tutorials because I'm just sitting here setting up, and I'm just gonna do a little bit of a casual chat, show you what I've been working on. And this will, instead of doing the edited cut and dry tutorials, this kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of the process that I'm going through while I'm creating one of these formulas, so that you can see kind of what I'm thinking about while I'm putting these together. So what I'm not ever doing is just imagining a formula, filming it, and then throwing it out there. I'm actually testing out a lot of these things over and over again, and we tweak them as we go along. So sometimes you'll see that the formulas will change. And I am going to make an attempt at, my cat just bumped into the camera. I'll be watching the live chat tonight on cottagediy.com. That's the chat that I'm kind of looking at. That's when I saw Judy pop in and say hi. And I will try to take a peek into the YouTube version. We're not running on the TikTok tonight because it's just too much. And this way I can keep my eyeballs on one chat room, and I won't miss so many people. But tonight we're going to be making bath crayons. And I've got in front of us all the notes through 10 versions of different types of formulas of how we created these. And I'm not going to actually bore you too much with going through every single one of these formulas, but we did come up with an 11th formula that combines the best of these. And I'll show you what we've got when we start working with these. But what I modeled this after, when first of all, I saw bath crayons posted on the internet. They've been on the internet for, I don't know, since the earliest post I found, I think, was 2006. And of course, obviously, there are products that you can get through just your regular Walmart and Target for children's, in the children's section. They're not super hard. Some of them do come with a process of chemicals. These were up in my granddaughter's collection of bath things. And these come from Tubworks. There's no ingredients on them. And when I start playing with these, so these are the commercial versions. These are the ones that you would buy at the store. When I start playing with these, the first thing you notice, they color really, really well. They're really soft to the touch. They get on everything. This is not something that I could just hand a 2-year-old and let her play with. You really do have to supervise. As you can see, the color transfer is pretty good. They're basically like a softer version of a regular crayon, and they're much messier. You can draw on your skin, draw on your face, and you can draw on the ceramic of the bathtub, and it wipes off pretty easily. These are a little messier than what I would like to have, sort of just give a 2-year-old to play with. I can't give these to her when she's not in the bathtub because, you know, she can walk away and draw on the furniture, and it does wipe off. It's fairly easy to clean. But we wanted to come up with a natural version of this that we could make for the kids. And it turns out that you'll find a handful of these recipes on the internet. Some of them are super good and some of them not so much. What I've done is I've taken the base ingredients that I could find, combine them together. I didn't come across a formula at all. I just came across people talking about the ingredients that they were using, and it's all, if you're a soap maker, it's all common sense stuff. There's no surprises in here. But and what the other thing that I did was I refrained from any of the formulas that people sell. There are a few of those floating around out there. I did not venture into that territory, partially because I don't want to be influenced. I also don't want to, I don't really, like, if anybody has some really fantastic ideas that they came up with, I don't want to be invading on other people's proprietary stuff. But mostly, I didn't want the bias to set in of what's already sort of canon and what we can use. I didn't want to I wanted to be able to exploit my creativity and come up with different ideas about what we could work with. And what I discovered was not remarkable, but really flexible when it comes to these formulas. So first off, what we've got going on is we've got a butter, a wax, and basically a stabilizer in a very small percent. And then there are different sort of shoot off ingredients from there. Now here in front of us, we've got 10 different formulas. Let me just move this around so you can see these. And I'm going to show you what works, what doesn't work as well, and why. And then that way, after I give you the very best version of the formula that I think works, you can decide for yourself how you want to formulate these, the combination of these things. You've never heard of tub crayons, Judy? Well, welcome to tonight's live. We're actually going to be doing this for March. Tonight's version are the non-soap versions. So these are the wax versions. These are basically like a toy you could give your child and just let them go. In many of these cases, these are basically just crayons that write on ceramic. But in next week's version, we're going to be doing the melt and pour soap version of the crayons. And then following that, we'll be doing the cold process, the actual soap version of these crayons. So they're all a little bit of a different product. This one I think is the easiest for little kids because you can kind of give them to them and just let them play, and you don't have to worry about them getting soap in their face and eyes and whatever. So out of this combination, the most practical ingredients, and by the way, I will have this all written up and with the notes and the formula written up over in the bath goodies section over at Cottage DIY. I started to create the page for it. It's over there. There's a sort of a bookmark page you'll find if you're a member over there, and you go into the bath goodies section, you'll find the bath crayon page already built, and I still have to upload my formula and ingredients. That'll go up in the next few hours. But these products that you're seeing in front of you have been made within the last 48 hours or so. I've actually been kind of just slowly plucking through them over the course of the last couple of days. And what we've got are cocoa butter, mango butter, different versions of them in different amounts. And we've got emulsifying wax, we've got some beeswax in some of these, and then we've got stearic acid. And then I came across a couple of people on the internet from decades ago talking about adding in some kaolin clay. I misplaced my kaolin clay, so I did try a few of these with some bentonite clay to see if we could get some different textures, and I'm going to tell you now what I've come up with. So the very first, out of all of these formulas, not including these, this is our final one. This is the final version, and what I think is going to work the best. But out of all of these formulas, this one here was the very best one. The color transfer is fantastic. You can see right here. I'll move this over so you can see. It colors really well. I have something here that sort of would replicate maybe some bath tile. And I'm not sure if the camera's picking that up, but you can color on it. You can color. Now, it does come off on my hands. It transfers. It's got a little bit of a slick to it. This was made out of 0.6% cocoa butter, 2% emulsifying wax, 1% stearic acid, and 1% bentonite clay. Out of all of the clay versions, and there are people who were swearing by it, saying that it worked real well, there's nothing in here that makes me feel like the clay is actually changing the texture or improving the product at all. In fact, in many cases, like in this one, or in this right here, the clay kind of settled in. I didn't mix it very well. And it kind of settled into places, giving a little discoloration. My gut feeling is that the clay itself didn't improve the product for specifically these non-soap bath crayons. So despite the fact that several of these have clay in them, that wasn't anything that went into the final product. So the very best one was a cocoa butter, leaning more toward cocoa butter and just a little bit of emulsifying wax. The very next one was the electric bubblegum. That's what this color is, from Brambleberry. This one here had a fantastic color transfer, almost identical. Electric bubblegum, almost identical. This version here was 0.4%, 40% cocoa butter, 40% emulsifying wax, 2% stearic acid without the clay in it. This one actually, the color transfer was better here. The texture is better here. It's got less of a slick to it. And that's because it's got a higher wax content. And it came out almost identical to this one. This one here is a little messier. This one here is better. So, and by the way, who knows what's in this product? There were no ingredients listed on the packaging, and I went on the company website and couldn't find it. So I have no idea what chemicals are in this. So if choosing between this one and this one, which are completely identical, and these are not as sort of messy for little kids to be handling, they also transfer pretty well on the ceramic, and they wipe off and they clean off real well. So this one here is 40% cocoa butter, 40% emulsifying wax, 20% stearic acid. That one also, this was my second top one. The third one down here was the neon green, which is radioactive. This is Mad Mica's radioactive. This was another one that I had the bentonite clay, which settled to the bottom, as you can see in the difference of the color. The bentonite clay, I don't believe improved the product or did anything in any stretch, although some people mention online in their formulas that they add in their kaolin clay. I actually don't think it does anything. But this, again, transfers real well. It's got a nice hard texture to it, so it's not about to, you can't draw on your face and your skin on this one like you can with some of the bath crayons. I guess if that's a feature that the kids like, then that wouldn't be something that you could do. The difference between these two is that this one's made out of cocoa butter, this one's made out of mango butter. If you want to choose the difference between cocoa butter and mango butter, they're almost identical. You can swap these in and out. You can choose, you can make your bath crayons with mango butter or cocoa butter. There's something about the cocoa butter that is less oily. It feels better in my hand. This one here has a little bit of like, it's not sweating, but as I'm touching it, it's kind of got a little bit of an oil, kind of a little slick to it. So when choosing between cocoa butter and mango butter, again, you can swap them in and out. They're very, very identical. I have a preference for the cocoa butter after playing with both of those and feeling them for a little bit. Number 4 in this list was this one. This one was mango butter. Again, this one had the bentonite clay in it. This is almost identical. The difference here, so we've got 60% mango butter, 2% e-wax, 1% stearic acid, 1% bentonite clay. And with this particular combination, it's almost the same as the others, but there's a little bit of a softness to it that matches. It's almost like a softness that we've got in this one. Again, I prefer them to be a little bit on the harder side. There's something about this that's a little soft, and you can see in my fingers are a little shiny and slick, so we've got a little bit of an oil feeling to the top of this. But I ranked this one number 4 on account of the fact that the color transfers real well, and again, it cleans and it wipes up really well. The next one was this set of leaves. On this one, there's less color transfer. It's not as bright as this one. This was 70% cocoa butter, 2% beeswax, 1% stearic acid. And the minute that I transferred over from the emulsifying wax to the beeswax, I got less color transfer. There's something about the beeswax that holds this all a little bit together, more candle-like. And then we have a very high butter content, which also keeps us a little bit slick and soft feeling. So this would have been, it's one of my lesser favorite formulas. Moving over to the purple one, what we did was we took this one, and instead of making it mostly cocoa butter, we made it mostly beeswax, and we reduced the cocoa butter. Again, it works. It does work. The color transfer is not super. It's actually not showing up on the camera almost at all. It works far, far less. The crayon itself can give you something, but I'm seeing sort of the wax on here. It doesn't have that slick oil texture feel to it that the other ones have. It's got more of a solid kind of candle, like a crayon feel. But the color transfer doesn't work so well. So this one here, so we're sort of more toward the bottom of our list now. And the beeswax was not preferred over the emulsifying wax. And then we go to the yellow one. This one had the clay in it. This one was beeswax with stearic acid. Yellow in general is tough to get it to transfer. This transfers well enough. We had 60% cocoa butter. The cocoa butter helped over the mango butter in getting that color transfer out. But we've got this, you can see right there in the middle where we've got that gray. And again, that's just noting how the bentonite clay did not mix very well. So in this experiment with this combination with the beeswax and the cocoa butter, the clay again proves to be kind of a useless ingredient in there. These spaceships here were just about a 50-50 blend of cocoa butter and e-wax. And the color transfer doesn't seem to be that good. The stearic, this is only 0.05% stearic acid. Not very much of a difference in what we're working with. With this one in particular, this was one of the first ones that I made. it's got a real good solid texture. It's holding up better than almost all of these other products. However, the color transfer wasn't super. It was really, really light. And that I think really had to do with the fact that I put less mica in this one. With the mica, each one of these particular little test products in front of me are all 1 ounce. And I was putting in an entire ½ ounce of mica in each one. And I think, and by the way, in many cases, the mica didn't completely dissolve and stayed at the bottom of my container. So we're probably getting about 1/4 of a teaspoon per 1 ounce, which is a lot of mica, much more than you would put in a soap. Translates out to about 3 teaspoons per pound. Again, a lot of mica. In this particular one, I don't think I put as much mica in, and I don't know, the transfer, the waxy transfer was there. Again, every single one of these wipes off and cleans very well. There was nothing that I found that I had any trouble getting off of the ceramic or off the grout. The Hollywood Pink, that's this one right here. It's too waxy. This one here this was 4%, 40% mango butter, 40% e-wax, 2%, 20% stearic acid. So it's basically 40% butter and 60% waxes. And the color transfer, once we got past that 50-50 mark, the color transfer stops working so well. And then for our final one were our orange ones. The orange almost didn't transfer at all. This was 70% waxes and 30% butters. And so as we're following this down, the thing to take with us while we tried all of these different combinations was that getting the color transfer, getting the correct amount of color transfer, was all about the wax to butter blend. How much butter, and also having the product hold together, its integrity of like not being all mush and goo when you're playing with it, or falling apart in the water, like sort of just moving up in the water. You want to have it hold its integrity. You want to have the babies be able to hold it in their hands without it coming off in their hands and falling apart, or turning their hands into slick oil, and also getting a good color transfer. And what I came up with, so all 10 of these turned into our final product. Also, curing time matters if you don't want them to break apart. That one popped out in the mold. All 10 of these turned out to be, first of all, another thing is the amount of mica, but the type of mica, obviously. You want to get those bright popping neons that do the best. But if you're using a 50-50 blend, then you're going to get the best result, in my opinion, based on all of these other ones that I tried. And emulsifying wax beats the beeswax, and the cocoa butter beats the mango butter. However, all of these things can possibly be swiped out for one another with very, very little notice. Like you can change the mango and cocoa, and probably no one else will notice, but you will, just from touching it and using it all the time. So this ended up being a 50-50 blend. It was a 45. No, it wasn't 50-50. Let me find my notebook really quickly, because I just wrote it all down. Oh yeah, it's a 50-50 blend. It's a 50 wax, 50 butter blend. So we've got 50% cocoa butter, 40% emulsifying wax, and then 10% stearic acid. So the 40 and the 10% stearic acid are 50% of the wax, and then the cocoa butter. And these feel the nicest in my hand. They still break. They're going to break. These long skinny ones are going to break, so they're not really like crayons. If you're looking for something that's sort of crayon shaped, which is what I was shooting for, obviously these are too long and skinny to really hold together, but these are the ice maker molds from IKEA. And you can guarantee I would make a nice fat round, something big and round that you could kind of hold and play with. This is Really Red from Nurture Soap. This one here is Eye of the Tiger from Nurture Soap. This one here was Yellow Vibrance from Nurture. This one here is not transferring super well in the camera, but the yellow is probably the better than this one was. We've got the green, which is the radioactive. The blue here is La Bamba Blue. And the purple is Jam Session. I just realized I was holding them upside down. I'm just showing you where the color transfer is. There we go. So these all came out pretty well. Again, I would recommend letting them cure fully before popping them out of the mold. I did notice that it does take a good solid 24 hours or they can crumble and break coming out of the mold. It's not like a bar of soap or it's not like a massage bar, like a lotion bar where you can, once they're dry, you can pop them out. These sort of wax and butters, you know, are going to be handled and they will crumble. Like these were maybe 20 hours. And out of all of them, the green one broke apart on me. However, I did notice that when you leave them alone and let them fully cure, they're less likely to break apart popping out of the mold. When you're playing with them and using them, obviously these long skinny ones are going to break. They're the same as crayons. When you're coloring too hard with them, they're just like crayons. You'll break them. But again, if I were making these to give to little kids, I'd probably make them half as short and then thick and wide. Judy, I'm poking over to take a look at the live chat. Judy says, I love the recipes on Cottage DIY. Thank you so much. This is kind of the process that I go through while I'm creating any of the recipes that we put up. I test a few versions of them. I'll have one in my imagination, but I'll test a few versions of them. In this case, we've got 11 different formulas that we threw together just to see how they would all behave and to see which one would come out best. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, based on the commercial versions of soap crayons, this is probably the best that you're going to get it. And not that it's probably better than this version. Where did we do with our pink? This is the this is almost very similar to this, only this has clay in it, and I don't think it was necessary to have clay in it. So, but we take that electric bubble gum and put this one right next to it. As you can see, identical color transfer. Only I think that this is better, and obviously the part where you know what you put into your product and what your child is touching and possibly even nibbling on is of course better, because we have no idea what's in that. No ingredients, nothing on the box that I could find, nothing on the manufacturer website, and I don't even know where they come from, to be honest. So that's what we came up with tonight, and that's the process by which I came across this formula. And again, it's a 50-50 blend. Nothing remarkable, super simple, but part of the nice thing about it is that the fact that there are not a lot of complicated steps, processes, and ingredients in a product that you give to a kid is kind of nice. That's one of the things that we can appreciate. And you do need to take the time to let it cure. You can see a lot of these kind of came out in different variations. This one here I popped out fairly quickly, and it did crumble on me as I was popping it out. These I let them go. I let them sit for a full 2 days, and they came out beautifully. So the time does matter. 24 hours seems to be okay, but 2 days is much better. There does seem to be a considerable amount of curing, becoming stronger even after 24 hours. That seems to make a difference. So there we have it. We have our 6 ingredients. 3 of them are essential, and you can make these yourself if you want to. If you're interested in the principal material or my notes, or you want to go back to this later on as a reference, maybe you're just not doing bath crayons right now, but you want to go back to it another time, you can find it in the bath goodies section at cottagediy.com in the soap and cosmetic course. And that will be there, permanently once the principal materials are put up, which will go up very shortly. And that's that for tonight. If you guys have any questions. Your youngest grandchild is 5. My oldest grandchild is 5. And I've got 4 of them. So the 2-year-olds seem to be the ones that really want to play with the bath crayons the most. There we go. So if there are any other questions, then I don't know. This isn't really much of a question invoking project tonight. It's pretty darn simple, pretty easy to make, pretty safe to make. It's not like soap making where you have to take extra precautions aside from working with high temperatures. I typically, when I'm making products, slow melt things over a double boiler, but in the case of these, because I'm using 1 ounce at a time, I just popped them in the microwave, and all the time that it took was just all about letting it cool and set up and leaving it alone until it was ready. So that's about it. So again, 50-50 blend, 50% butter, 50% waxes, and you are all set. And that is probably the best bath crayon formula that you're going to get, and comparable with the commercial brands. And I was going to do a demonstration on the ceramic so that you could see, but you get a general idea. It just wipes right off. This is how you do the cleaning afterwards. That's it. Just that simple. There were no combinations of waxes or butters that were difficult in wiping off, although I have seen a lot of comments on people's experiences on the internet saying that with some of the commercial bath crayons, the Crayola ones, that they couldn't wipe them off, or they couldn't get them out of the grout, or it took some difficulty. I have seen some of the cheaper versions from like lesser box stores, no-name versions, where one of my oldest grandchild still has drawings all over his shower, his father's shower, because they couldn't end up wiping it off after quite some time. That's not the case with any of these. And that's it for tonight. Thank you for popping by, Judy. I really loved, I'm going to tell you again, even though I know you've seen me post it a couple times, I loved the pictures of the puppies and the octopuses that you had sent over, and I posted them. I don't know if you saw, but I posted them and I tagged you in the group on Cottage DIY, in the Soap Maker's Lair on Cottage DIY, and I immediately started getting a lot of responses. For a couple weeks it was kind of slow and people weren't really posting anything, and the minute I put up those little octopus pictures, then all the little likes started coming out and people started chattering about them. So that really made me smile. So thank you for sharing those with us, because that was really fun, and I was really happy to see that. So, okay guys, that's the live for tonight. Next week we're going to do a similar version in children's products, but we're going to make the soap version of these for the melt and pour. All month long it'll be about children's soap crayons, and if I can find the time to fit in, we're going to try the finger paint, the children's tub finger paints, but we'll see if we can stretch those in there. So again, next Tuesday night at 10 o'clock, we will be coming back with another live, and I'll give you the formula for the next version of children's soap crayons. And again, if you want to come back and print these out or revisit any of these recipes in the future, you can find them at cottagediy.com in the soap and cosmetic resources. You guys have a good night. Hey guys, welcome to the live. There's always a few minute delay on my end. It seems like we go live and then it takes me a minute to see what's going on. So we'll do a little bit of housekeeping just to start and see how this works out. I am watching comments. If you are joining us with the live, I'm over at cottagediy.com watching any comments. And shout out to Leslie, who may be on right now watching us. If you're there, then hi. I'm here to say hi to you because I saw your comment posted earlier today. And feel free to interact and chat. You're only able to chat in the comments box if you're a member at cottagediy.com, and this allows me to really be able to see what our community is talking about or how they're engaging and asking questions about the topic without having any trolls. I have tried this in the past few weeks with TikTok Live and YouTube Live and all the platforms and trying to follow comments back and forth, and what I've noticed that ends up happening is I end up missing the comments that are actually real comments as opposed to the troll comments. So I'm going to try to hone that down a little bit by sticking with keeping my eyeballs on one chat room, and the chat room where I know that there's some real people who may be engaging in the formula that we're talking about this evening. Now, tonight's time slot, this Wednesday at 12:45, is an experiment. I'm going to be trying out some different experimental time slots, and it's really never about numbers of people who are watching us. It's really more about when I have the quiet time and space to be able to talk and be heard without being interrupted. I've got an entire family organization going on around me in the rooms around me. So when we can get the quietest time available is when I'll post these live streams. And then the live stream will always replay until the next live stream comes up. So if you do have any questions at cottagediy.com, you can type them into the chat box, and that live stream, that replay, will always be available to watch throughout the week or until the next live. And there are always people that are bouncing around in that chat box, so you do not have to catch this in live time to have any of your questions answered. You can have any of your questions available to post in that live chat box at any time throughout the course of the week. Now, if you're not a member at cottagediy.com and you're watching us on YouTube, or you're just watching on the live stream over at the website, but you're not a registered member, so you can't join in on the chat box, then just be aware that when we go through these formulas, I am giving you the recipe fully in this tutorial, in this chat, in this live chat. So this is not intended to be a bait to get you to go over and sign up for a membership if you're just here for information. And if you're here because you wanted the formula for something that you saw, like for example, if you saw me talking about something over on TikTok and you wanted to bounce over here and see how to create your product, we'll always be giving the formula for free in this chat. Just keep in mind that these live chats are just sort of me talking about side projects and about what we're working on over here at Cottage DIY. These are not the curated tutorials. So if my distractions and my side thoughts are sort of too much to handle and you just want to get down to the nitty gritty and you want the concise information in the form of a clear, organized tutorial, that you will have to go over to the member section and you'll have to find and curate all of the tutorials for the formulas over there. So there's members material, and it's concise and to the point, and that gives you just the straight out information. And then there are these live chats where you will get the information if you can tolerate me for a little bit. But there are a couple of interesting points in regard to the featured ingredient in the formula in front of us. And today what we're going to be discussing are these solid lotion bars, which are fantastic as massage bars that are infused with CBD isolate powder. And I think by now pretty much everyone understands why there's a perceived benefit to CBD isolate powder, and we're going to be talking about those perceived benefits. But I don't want to go any further until I mention that we are not ever making medical claims. We are not claiming that these are curing, healing, taking care of any ailments. You generally already know what CBD isolate powder is good for, and we're going to be talking about the difference between anecdotal claims and what some new studies have shown us that have come out that are published on in some of the literature, and some of the concerns that we could potentially have, and some things that, that we kind of already knew we knew, but now there are studies to tell us that. We're going to be talking about that in this live chat. That is not to say that I'm creating or trying to promote or sell you any kind of anything medicinally. These are just massage bars, they're just lotion bars, they're just cosmetics, and also I'm not selling these bars to you. I'm just making them, and I'm showing you how I make them and what I think that they can be good for, and some information pertaining to them. So no, these are not for sale. Maybe in another life, at another time, I'll throw up a batch and put them up on my store. But right now, what we're doing today is we're just talking about these. You can get a pen and paper and you can write down the formula if you want, but if you're already a member, then you can just grab the printable materials that are on the page that's already dedicated to this, that has the video tutorial on it. And the link to that is over there in the chat box. Also, the link to that is in the CBD and hemp oil category in the recipe directory. So if you're already a member, then you know how to navigate your way over to the soap making course. Go into the recipe directory, and you can find this listed with all the other CBD formulas. That is where it's located at. There's also a little sort of hard-coded link that you can grab that's sitting in the chat box right now. But if you're not a member, you don't have to go to all that effort. You can just pay attention tonight and listen to what we're working on. So we're going to start off by describing the formula to you. Again, we're working with, these are lavender-scented CBD massage bars. And in general, a solid lotion bar is going to have 40% soft oil. I know that kind of sounds counterintuitive because this is just a solid piece of butter, but it's 40% soft oil. So it's 40% of a liquid oil, 35% of a hard oil, 25% of a wax. And in the case of our formula, which by the way, actually is a beautiful formula, we're using 9.6 ounces of hemp seed oil. And the hemp seed oil can be any light seed oil. You can substitute grapeseed oil, you could substitute corn oil or vegetable oil. We want to take into consideration what this smells like. Hemp seed oil is a little bit of a deep, musky, grassy smell, but we're going to cover that with lavender essential oil, and it's kind of novelty. It goes along with the product that we're creating for a CBD hemp seed oil product. So if you don't like the hemp seed oil, yes, you can substitute this out for a soft oil that you like. But in our case, the hemp seed oil works beautifully. Then we want 8.4 ounces of cocoa butter. The cocoa butter is the hard butter that we need to create this lotion bar in exactly the way that it is. You can substitute mango butter. It's hard enough. It does the job. You cannot substitute shea butter. It's just not hard enough, and it won't hold up with this formulation. And then in our case, we're using 6 ounces of beeswax. Yes, you can substitute out for candelilla wax if you don't want to use an animal byproduct. And you can do it the vegan way if you want to. It will make no difference. It will also come out just as fine, but I like the beeswax, so that's what we're using. Now I've also added in 1/4 of an ounce of vitamin E, which gives it that sort of rich, moisturizing quality to it. And in my case, in the demonstration, I'm using 2 ounces of fragrance oil. If you're going to use a lavender essential oil, I would recommend about 1/4 of an ounce. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, a solid lotion bar is going to be a hard butter that's actually going to start to melt when it comes in contact with the heat of your skin. So these are pretty delicate. They're not delicate in that they're not going to fall apart. They're solid pieces that are going to stay solid on you. They're not tenuous. They're not going to fall apart on you. But what they are going to do is they're going to melt when they touch your skin. And even handling them too much is going to melt. And let's see if you can see the effect. This is almost instantly melting on the surface of my skin. And I get this nice slick. So these are perfect for massage bars. And it doesn't really leave any residual waxy buildup. Even though there's beeswax in here, this is going to rub right into my skin, and it's going to be nice and comfortable. So they do start to get oily as soon as you touch them, but it doesn't leave an oily buildup. So that's the formula in itself. Now additionally, I've got 150 milligrams per ounce of CBD isolate powder. So that's 300 milligrams for each bar. The total overall formula that I just gave you is 24 ounces. And if you create 2-ounce bars, which is the perfect size for each one of these, then you get 12 bars and you'll end up with 300 milligrams of CBD isolate powder. So that's the formula, and that's exactly how you make these things. Now, you really don't have to go to all the effort of hunting down a tutorial in order to create these. The most important thing that you need to know is that everything needs to be combined. Essentially, you melt it down and then allow for it to solidify. But everything needs to be combined completely, which means the highest melting point of all the ingredients that you have in this list of ingredients will be the CBD isolate, which has a melting point of 151 degrees. So when you're melting everything down, make sure that you reach 151 degrees for just a minute, stir everything in nicely, and then pour it out into your molds, and voila, you have a perfect, absolutely perfect product here. These are beautiful, beautiful lotion bars. To another Friday afternoon live. If you're over here from TikTok, then you might know that we just got spanked while we were going live over there, and kicked off the live for covering what today's discussion is going to be about. So I'm resetting up this live over here, and we're going to try to make an attempt at giving you this information that we're working on again today, documenting it. And if you're not joining us live, then this replay will be up for 1 week. So if you stumbled upon a little tidbit of information that triggered your interest and you came over here, then yes, all the information that we were discussing over there will be available here till next Friday, probably, or until we move on along with the next formula, in which case the live will come down and we'll carry on with the next discussion. If you guys are new here, then welcome. I'm Jennifer. I am the creator at cottagediy.com, and we are over here having a little informal chat today about a hair serum formula, an oil that I've put together that was inspired by a medical paper that I had run across over on PubMed that we're going to discuss and talk about today. So if you're following me over from any other content, then you know this is a hair growth serum that we're going to be sort of informally chatting about. And I will be giving you the recipe, or at least a formula that I've constructed here, that we've put together here. We will be discussing that in full, and I want to touch base and discuss the points that were made in a case study that had been just executed this past year. There have been 2, in fact, but we're only going to discuss the first one here today. If I read this whole thing, I've already done 2 lives now where I've made an attempt at reading out this entire paper. It does take about a half an hour to get through the full. It's only 5 pages. It's not long. And I think with this live, what we'll do today is I'm just going to read you the abstract, the generalization, and then I'm going to read you just the case study so that we can get right to it, so that I can discuss the formula and how to make this hair serum. Now, if you are new to my lives, this is just an informal chat that's going to give you most of all the information that you're going to want if you're trying to create this product at home. I'm not selling you this product. I'm not making it to try to pitch a sale to you for the product. I have created and made this, and I will refine this recipe. I will tweak this recipe. This is based on my understanding of how to put these together. I'm using all of the clues in this paper in order to create something that's, I think, actually more pleasant. And this paper actually gives us some creative ideas. The researcher, the doctor who wrote this paper, threw in some suggestions and ideas that would be sort of left to the future about how to combine the formula and how to create this formula. He really left it up to sort of our creativity, which I've taken advantage of, and we've blended in a few sort of proprietary blends. I'm going to tell you all about that as we're going through this live today. So specifically, the case study that was held in Florida in 2021, the paper is titled Hair Regrowth with Cannabidiol, CBD-rich hemp extract, and it's a case series. So there were 35 test subjects that went through a trial of trying a hair serum with cannabidiol CBD extract. And this is an open access paper, so if you feel so motivated, then you can always just Google this and you can read the entire paper for yourself. But let me read the abstract to you, and I'm going to tell you my thoughts on this and then the way by which we created this formula right here. Androgenetic alopecia is the most common cause of hair loss. Several FDA-approved medications are available but offer limited results. Studies have shown that the endocannabinoid system, ECS, is a key player in hair follicle cell growth. The ECS cannabinoid type 1, CB1 receptors are well expressed in the hair follicle cells. Cannabidiol, CBD, is a negative allosteric modulator of the CB1 receptor. This is just a bunch of jargon that once you read it over and over again, it starts to sort of soak in over time. You don't need to know any of this once we hit these main ideas. And it's been shown to result in hair shaft elongation. There's our main idea right there. The CB1 receptor has been shown to result in hair shaft elongation once it's modulated. In addition, the hair follicle cycle phases are controlled by the ECS vanilloid receptor, the TRPV1. CBD has been shown to increase WNT signaling pathways that are involved in the differentiation of dermal progenitor cells into new hair follicles and maintaining the anagen phase of the hair cycle. The effects of CBD on hair growth are dose dependent. The author who wrote this paper, again, it's only about a 5-page paper, and he's put into this paper, at least in 3 different locations, that the hair growth after using CBD is dose dependent. So we need to remember that. The dose that we have replicated and that we've put into our formula that is described in this paper is relevant to the success of what we're looking for here. Higher doses may result in premature entry into the catagen phase via a receptor known as the vanilloid receptor 4, TRPV4. Topical application of CBD reaches hair follicles where it is a CB1 negative modulator and TRPV1 and TRPV4 agonist. A study was done of 35 subjects with alopecia using a once daily topical hemp oil formulation, averaging about 3 to 4 milligrams per day of CBD and minimal amounts of other cannabinoids for 6 months. A hair count of the greatest area of alopecia was carried out before treatment and again after 6 months. The result revealed that men did slightly better than women, and the vertex area did better than the temporal areas. On average, there was a statistically significant 93.5 increase in hair after 6 months. All subjects had some regrowth. There were no reported adverse effects. Since the CBD works through novel mechanisms different from finasteride and minoxidil, can be used in conjunction with these concurrent drugs that would be expected to have a synergistic effect. That's just the synopsis. That's basically what this paper is saying. And so there are a few very important points here in this paper. 1, dose dependent is relevant to pay attention to. And 2, the CBD is working in a way that other types of over-the-counter things that are already approved, or even pharmaceuticals that are already approved, it works differently from those so they can be combined together, which also leads us to maybe explore the idea that some of our herbal remedies that have also been studied to be effective for hair growth work differently than the CBD, and we can combine those things together too. And that would be a very interesting experiment to do. Now, this paper goes on in just a few pages here. It actually discusses, it gives you a definition of what alopecia is, and it discusses the history of the already approved methods that exist on the market. Hold on, we got to do some animal maintenance here. We'll come back in 1 second. All right, we might have to do animal maintenance number 2 in just a moment, see if that'll satisfy these guys. Again, this is our informal chat. Now, if you want the condensed information without the distractions and just get to the point with the full demonstration, that part's over in the member section. There's always much more robust information in the member section of the website at cottagediy.com, and it gets right to the point without all my extra banter and chatter. Again, this is just an informal chat, and I will be distracted, by the way. are several friends walking around in the studio today. It's a nice bright summer day. And we have a lot of things that are going on in the middle of the day. There are many little children running around this house, several rooms away. So you may hear that. Those children may be playing with one of several animals, which may or may not be a noisy flock of chickens, or a couple of huskies, or a Siamese cat. And they all may be taking turns either playing or warring, one of the two. So those are just things in our reality. Again, this is just our informal chat, and my studio's wide open just for this discussion today. So we will not be free of distractions. We'll just kind of be flexible and go with the flow. So in front of us, I've created a formula that is based on the information that's provided to us in this paper. So I'm going to skip over all of the parts that discuss what alopecia is, although it's very interesting and it gives us a little bit more insight as to exactly these mechanisms, which really do revolve around what's happening, the hormonal and disruptive changes that are happening inside the hair follicle. That's not new information. And there are plenty of herbal remedies out there that are not new information that have been known to promote hair growth. Those herbal remedies are rosemary, menthol, and horsetail. And any of those things you can commonly find in shampoos and conditioners. There are plenty of studies. They're not old wives' tales, even though they may also be old wives' tales. But there's a lot of study that shows that that information is true. And the degree to which it works for some people or not, I guess, would be subjective based on their application or based on their, whatever's ailing them. And also, when I come across these papers, I always notice that they are discussing alopecia. They're not discussing skin diseases. They're not discussing injuries, burns, things that are sort of on the fringe of, all the types of things that can happen to people. They're talking about the general normal alopecia. So again, that will be whether or not a person has alopecia or they sort of self-diagnose. It's really all subjective. And so these are all things that we can use as insight to experiment with. But we'll carry on with the actual study that happened in 2021 in Clearwater, Florida. The present study, this is the first study, by the way. There has been a follow-up study that also resulted with a lot of successful information, which we'll cover in another live. The study was conducted to evaluate the efficacy of daily topical application of CBD-rich hemp oil formation on alopecia. Secondary goals of the study were to look for adverse effects associated with the daily topical application. Based on the preclinical evidence of the hair regrowth, benefits of antagonizing the CB1 receptors, and from overstimulating TRPV1 receptors, we would expect a significant increase in hair follicles in the treated area. Methods. The study is a case study of adults presenting to a hair scalp center in Clearwater, Florida. Adult subjects not currently using minoxidil or finasteride were offered the opportunity to receive the hemp oil extract free of charge through Facebook advertising. The first 35 subjects who responded were selected, 28 males, 7 females. They were Caucasian. They were diagnosed with alopecia based on the presence of gradually progressing bitemporal and/or vertex alopecia. Clinical diagnosis of AGA with Norwood-Hamilton classification score of 3V or 4. The Norwood-Hamilton classification is used to score stages of male pattern baldness from 1 to 7. Stages 3V, vertex. There is a slight recession of the hairline around the temples, but there's significant hair loss on the top of the scalp, the vertex. Stage 4, the hairline recession is more than a slight recession of the hairline around the temples, and there is sparse hair to no hair. Let me get you in here so you can see this. On the vertex. The two areas of hair loss are separated by a band of hair that connects to the hair remaining on the sides of the scalp. The predefined endpoints where hair counts obtained in a defined representative area of scalp hair loss and investigator clinical assessment of hair growth. The females were ages 46 to 76 with an average age of 61, and the males were 28 to 72 with an average age of 43. The subjects gave their written informed consent for this 6-month trial. The studies adhered to the Holinsky guidelines and was institutionally approved. Each participant was provided with an informed consent form that they signed. None of the subjects were currently using minoxidil or finasteride. No other hair loss treatments were used during the 6 months of the research. The subjects were given a topical extract in a 2-ounce jar once a month and advised to apply a thin layer once each morning to the areas of baldness. The subjects were advised that she could use blow dryers, conditioners, and other hair preparations. The 2-ounce topical was replaced as needed at monthly visits and throughout the 6-month trial. The amount used varied significantly based on the area of the scalp to be treated. None of the subjects used more than 2 ounces in any 1-month period. The topical extract was made of high CBD cannabis sativa hemp flower that had been ultra pulverized into a fine powder. This chalk-like green powder was independently analyzed by Cannalysis Labs in Santa Ana, California, and it was found to contain 10.78 CBD and 0.21 THC, and there was no detectable in the THCV or the CBDV, which are just variations of the phytocannabinoids. They're just a smaller amount of a varin. This powder was infused into a lanolin-based paste and natural emu oil carrier. Each 2-ounce jar contained 1,000 milligrams of powder or 108 milligrams of CBD. The subjects, meaning the powder, it was 1,000 milligrams of powder that they put into the material, but really all they care about in that powder is what the CBD is. That's what they're studying. The other stuff was just extra plant material that they used for this particular study. I believe in the second study they just went straight with the CBD. I'll have to reread that one, but in our case, we're not dealing with plant material. We're not harvesting the stuff out of the backyard and then ultra pulverizing it. We're going to a reputable soap supply company or a supply company and getting isolated CBD powder. This is already broken down and distilled into an oil, so it's already ready to be used and formulated into our cosmetics. But so what we care about, the reason that's significant is because we don't need to know about the 1,000 milligrams of powder. What we care about is the 108 milligrams of CBD, because that's what they're going after, that's what they're studying, and we are not going through this process in our formulation. We just go right here. The subjects were advised to apply a thin layer of the paste over all bald or balding areas once each morning. The 2-ounce jar lasted approximately 1 month, which is an average daily dose of 3 to 4 milligrams of topically applied CBD. The hair count of the greatest area of alopecia was carried out before treatment was started and again after 6 months of treatment. To facilitate consistent hair count analysis, a clear acrylic mold was made of each subject's head. The front of the mold was positioned at the hairline with additional measurements from the tip of the nose to the front of the mold. At 1 centimeter square, a 1 centimeter square was removed from the mold in the area of the greatest alopecia, which was either in the temporal or the vertex regions. The hair count was done within a 1 centimeter area. The non-vellus hairs within the 1 centimeter square were pulled through the opening with a surgical skin hook. A Bedellin proscope with 50 times magnification was used to perform the hair count. And here are our results. The specific data and hair count for each subject is demonstrated in Table 1. This is Table 1, and I'll just describe to you verbally because you probably won't be able to see it completely. The temporal area. This table reveals that hair counts in the temporal area increased an average of 74.1 in men and 55.2 in women. In men, the number of hairs increased from a baseline of 20.6 to 33.7 in the temporal areas, and women from 20.3 to 50.5 hairs. In the vertex area, the top of the scalp, right where people, like that seam of your hair where people start to have thin hair. In the vertex area, the hair counts increased on average of 120.1% for men and 64.9% for women. In men, the number of hairs increased from a baseline of 16.8 to 32.9. And remember, that's a square centimeter in the temporal area. And in women from 18.7 to 30.7. So it's almost 100% increase in the hair. The baseline is the hair that they have, and then how much hair that they have at the end of 6 months. It's almost increased by 100%. For all males, the baseline hair count was 18.29, and at the 6th month it was 33.21. So that almost 100%. And for all females, the baseline hair count was 19.57, and at 6 months, it was 30.57. The paired sampled t-value for men before and after differences was 7.38. The paired sampled t-value for women before and after differences was 5.56. So men did better with this serum than women did, but also men lose more hair. So that should be expected, perhaps. I'm not making any assumptions. I'm just kind of, I get it, kind of tracks. The hair count increased 93.5% from 18.5 to 32.7 when temporal and vertex areas were combined. In general, males and the vertex, the top of the head, areas did best. All subjects had some increase in hair count. No self-reported survey of cosmetic appearance was done. 1/3 of the patients reported some slightly increased hair shedding during the first month of treatment. This was no longer noted at the 2-month visit. Otherwise, there was no reported adverse effect use from the extract. Here is our table here, and I'm not sure if that translates on the screen very well, but essentially it lists all the patients all the way down from 1 to 35, their age, their sex, where the, if it was temporal or vertex, where the baldness was, how many hairs per square centimeter at the place that was being tested, and then 6 months later, and then the difference between these two numbers, and then the percent in change all the way down. In some people with just the CBD oil, and some people almost 400%. There's one guy here who has a 0. Everyone else is up in the 83, 91, 58. And we don't know what happened to this one guy here. He was a 63-year-old man, and he had no. So did he do it correctly? Did he have something else going on? We don't know. There's no mention as to why that one man had a 0. And so here's the discussion on this paper. And this basically, this is where we get all of our ideas and all of our sort of permission for creativity based on what the researcher has concluded about this. This case study supports significant hair regrowth benefits in both men and women with alopecia. In general, men did slightly better than women, and the vertex, the top of the head, did better than the sides. On average, there was a 93.5 increase in non-vellus hair after 6 months of once daily use. Every subject, all the people, had some regrowth. The exact mechanism of a therapeutic effect is not entirely clear. Furthermore, definitive research is planned. CBD may be functioning as a CB1 receptor antagonist via negative allosteric effects, excessive TRPV1 agonism, and potentially also via the WNT messaging. The dosing of the CBD needs to be further evaluated, as preclinical research suggests that much higher doses of CBD may cause agonistic effects at TRPV4 receptors, which could cause premature entry of the hair follicle into the catagen phases, thereby inhibiting hair growth. So if you use too much CBD in your formula, you actually might be stimulating an additional receptor that would actually just accelerate the hair through its growth cycle and bring you right back to the end of the growth cycle, and then your hair would just fall out anyway. So this is really, it's really interesting, but also, well, I'll continue on before we start with our comments. The safety of topically applied CBD has been previously well documented from the Expert Committee on Drug Dependence. Once again, there is no reported significant adverse effects for 6-month application of this CBD topical. Since the CBD works through novel mechanisms entirely different from both finasteride and minoxidil, it can be used in conjunction with these current drugs, and it would be expected to have a synergistic effect, just as finasteride and minoxidil have been shown to have synergism when used together. Further research is planned with a hemp extract that's high in the CBD and the THCV and the CBDV. In addition, that study has already been done, and we'll review that study too, and it was also successful. In addition, comparative crossover studies with minoxidil should be considered. So this basically tells us that CBD is an ingredient of interest when we're adding it into our hair serums, but 3 times the author mentioned that you do have to be careful. It must be dose dependent. You have to pay attention to what you're doing and make sure you're putting the right amount on your scalp. Otherwise, other receptors could start to become involved and it might give you the opposite effect of what you're looking for. So we do have to be aware of that. The other thing that this discusses is the synergistic effect with other types of, well, what the paper says is other types of already approved pharmaceuticals, things that are over the counter. Now, there are a lot of studies that include comparisons to minoxidil and rosemary infused oils that show us that rosemary infused oils or the rosemary extract is just as effective as minoxidil. But minoxidil is a chemical and rosemary infused oils and rosemary extract is not a chemical. In fact, has almost no toxicity level. Obviously, you know that you can eat gobs of it. You can put it in all your food. It's never going to hurt you. It's probably has some, antioxidant benefits. But the rosemary hair oil has always been known as something that promotes hair growth. It promotes hair growth, but differently, not in the same way that the CBD receptors are involved. And so it might be expected that using these things in combination with each other would create a synergistic effect, which is what we've done here. So that's really one of the most important things to point out in this paper. Again, more study is needed, and he mentions that, and he has done another study, and he has gone on and he's created a similar formula with different carrier oils. So I guess he's experimenting with maybe like what's more pleasing to a person to make it so that they will use it every single day. Because if you're giving someone something that they're gonking onto their head and then they have to wear it around all day, that also might not be pleasant if they simply don't like it, right? So we also have to keep in mind that this is something that has to be pleasing. Now I've created a formula, as you can see right here, and I'll show you this. So I've created a 12-ounce formula. And again, I'm not selling this to you. I'm just telling you what I'm doing. So if you want to do it too, you can replicate it. And I'm showing you how I did it so that I know what kind of a dosage that I'm getting. Because again, we want to be careful of dosage. And this is a great example of how more isn't always better, right? Because if you are already here, you may be already a lotion maker, you may be already using CBD products or infusions in your lotions, and you may have noticed the trend since 2016, 17, and 18 to where the average dosage, and this is just my opinion, this is my observation over the last few years, the average dosage has always been between 50 and 150 milligrams per ounce of oil or cream or topical skincare product. That has been something that's been sort of commercially sold on store shelves. And then over the last few years, you've started to see, and especially with the small cosmetic makers, like on Etsy and small websites and stuff, you start to see 300 and 400 and 500. And again, this is being put in there because people have they have a perceived benefit that this is relieving pain topically. And there's an entire science behind that I will go into on another live, and I'll explain why this does work. But remember, you're rubbing something on your skin and your skin is reacting to it, and it's creating a perception of pain relief. The CBD is not ever going into your skin when you're using this as a topical for pain relief, for whatever reason. We're talking about creams and lotions right now. I'm not talking about consuming things or when people eat this stuff. I'm just talking about making your lotions. It comes in contact with your skin, and your skin has a reaction to it. Adding more into the topical doesn't necessarily give you a greater perception of pain relief. It just does what it does. So you're wasting your product if you put more than is needed for the perceived benefit. There actually was a study on this. I'll dig that up for another time, but it has been shown that a lot of the pain relief, although it's real and there is an explanation as to why this can happen and why it actually is a neuromodulator, and it's being more and more studied. There's more information that's supporting this all the time. It's not it's still subjective in the way by which people perceive their pain relief, right? This is a little bit different when we're talking about this formula, because in this case the CBD actually is absorbing into the hair follicle, the receptors that are on the keratinocytes, that are on the cells of the skin that are modulating the hair follicles, right? So this is actually doing something that's just a little bit different. It's not working in the same way as your other CBD topicals are. This is doing something different. And so for that reason, something different can happen if you change your doses around and you mess with your doses, it won't be the same as just wasting your product by putting too much for label appeal. You know, say someone's going to spend $40 on a 2-ounce coconut oil and CBD infused cream. Are they going to spend $40 on the one that's 150 milligrams or the one that's 300 milligrams? Well, they're going to pick the one that has 300 milligrams in it, but it doesn't do them any better. It's not helping them any more than the one with 150, according to the studies. This is, again, if you have a different feeling about this, your feeling is just as valid, because we're still in the area of anecdotal and subjective things, subjective ideas and opinions, but the studies are coming out more and more, and it's leaning more toward what I'm describing. Again, I'm not a doctor and I'm not pretending to be, I'm just telling you I've read through all of these studies and this is my interpretation of them. And if you would like to know more about this, then you could go over to PubMed and you can type in cannabidiol and topical and skin relief and all of those things, and thousands of these studies will come up. And if I were filtering through those, or if I were giving someone advice on how to filter through those, what I would say is hit the ones that are the most recent, because that's giving you more robust information that people are building on, and they have more to cite and more to look into, so they can get more preclinical data before they start doing their studies, and they have just like more robust information. That's just my opinion. You know, you might come up with a zinger that's from 1999. That might possibly also happen. So with this particular formula, let's go over why I chose the oils that I chose and the recipe. Again, 12-ounce formula. These are all put into little 1-ounce containers, and the way it's dosed out, each 1-ounce container should last 2 weeks. Again, in our case study, what they described was 2 to 3 milligrams per day, or 108 milligrams in a 2-ounce container, which is basically what we've done here, except I put them in 1-ounce containers. So each one of these 1-ounce container is going to have 54 milligrams, and if you are able to spread that out over the course of 2 weeks, it's going to give you, what you're using is not in the form of a ground up, pulverized, ultra pulverized hemp powder, which again could potentially not give you, this is my imagination, I'm not saying that happened in the study, it could potentially, if I were using a ground up pulverized hemp powder, an imbalance, or maybe it would settle, or maybe it wouldn't dissolve in the oils, or it wouldn't settle properly. And you could get different amounts in different packaging. I mean, that's all possible. But when we're using the isolate powder, this is already turned into an oil that's been sort of crystallized. And then we just dissolve it back into the oils so that it's completely 100% blended. So I'm not confused about the dosages that I have in here. Now, if you caught my last live, we discussed the wild inaccuracies that there have been studies. There are 2 actually really good ones, really robust studies that show the wild inaccuracies on the label descriptions of novel CBD products. So more often than not, when you're buying anything, even if it's off an Etsy store, if it's off a small store, or if it's even a commercially made product and you're buying it at a spa or a pharmacy, those were all equally tested. Almost all of them, almost every single one of them, had a lack of continuity in the reported label compared to how much product was in the bottle. So that's something to just kind of keep in the back of your mind if we discover as time goes on that you don't want to overdose yourself on CBD topicals for a specific reason that we may discover later on, right? So just keep in mind that those things are very often not labeled accurately. When you're in control of it yourself, when you're making it yourself, you have much more control over making sure you do it correctly. So the way we do it here, again, we'll get back to it. This is a very simple formula. I'm making a 12-ounce batch separated into 1 ounces, and we're using 9.6 ounces of grapeseed oil and 2.4 ounces of lanolin. The grapeseed oil, so the first question one might ask is, okay, well, if you're selling a product to, or if you're creating a product and you're making it for the CBD hemp lifestyle, demographic, why wouldn't you just add hemp seed oil in there? And by and large, mostly in all of my topicals, in all of my formulas, when we're creating CBD type lotions, I almost always use hemp seed oil. And the reason is because it's label appeal. It's novelty for that demographic that wants all the hemp stuff, right? But the truth is that when we're making a hair growth serum, we're making something that is interesting to a much larger demographic, much broader swath of people than just that sort of hemp culture lifestyle people. A lot of people are going to want something that's very pleasant and nice. And hemp seed oil does one thing if you've never opened up a bottle of it from your grocery store. By the way, hemp seed oil you can get with CBD, but mostly you're going to get it from a soap supply company or from your grocery store shelves, and that has no CBD in it. There's nothing, it's just a hemp seed extract, which is free from, there's no extra chemical in there. It's just a cooking oil. That's all it's for. And it's not a very good cooking oil. The quality is fine, but it doesn't taste very good, which is why it's not super popular. And you don't find it, you find it up there stuffed next to the sesame seed oil. It's just not fantastic for cooking with. So it also smells. It smells like a deep, rich, earthy grass. And if you like that smell, that's smashing. But most people don't. And so what they don't want to do is rub their scalp in a smell that's displeasing or incompatible to the other smells which are pleasing. So I selected a grapeseed oil. And the grapeseed oil is an unsaturated fat. It's not going to solidify or congeal if you put it in the refrigerator. Grapeseed oil is very often a salad dressing style oil. You can put it in the fridge, it'll be fine, which is different from like your olive oils, which turn into a solid block if they are stuck in the refrigerator. And so that's just the texture. It's lightweight, it doesn't smell like anything, and you can put it onto your scalp, and you can go and wear it for the rest of the day without having the greasiness, right? We're not rubbing oil into everything. And that's different from when you want to oil your scalp. Like if you're a person who regularly needs to oil your scalp or you find comfort in that, then you know exactly that type of massage kind of texture that you want, like the shea, the butters and things like that, because you don't want grease, right? You're not looking for a shellac. And so we want to avoid the oils that are going to be these saturated fats. And then again, this is just my opinion, to create the most pleasant blend. Now, so grapeseed oil is great. It's great for, if it gets on your clothes, it won't stain. It washes out very easily. It doesn't smell like anything. And if you rub it in your scalp and you intend to wear it around all day long, then it's just pleasant. So now we're not just going to put the grapeseed oil in there. What we really want to do is we want to create a rosemary infused oil, because we really want that rosemary extract to possibly promote that synergetic effect that the paper describes. In the following paper, by the way, the researcher uses menthol and peppermint. Now, I chose not to do that because I chose rosemary over the menthol and peppermint because, first of all, I make lots of rosemary extracts. I use it all the time in lots of my formulas. I love it. I love the smell. It's very pretty. And it's also, to me, peppermint smells clinical. It smells almost medicinal. And I like it for certain purposes, but I want it for mouthwash. I don't want to scrub it into my head. But menthol is also known for being promoting hair growth. So I want the rosemary. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 4.8 ounces. Could be 5 ounces. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but 4.8 ounces it gave me enough to get a really good extract. And I'm going to grind that rosemary, that dried rosemary, down in my coffee grinder until I pulverize it into a dust. Now, if you're used to making infused oils, then you know that you're going to combine your oil and you're going to combine your herbs, your dried herbs, and you're going to let it sit in a dark cupboard for about 30 days. And then when you're done, voila, you shake it a few times and you've got a beautiful infused oil. And that's great if you want to wait 30 days to make 12 ounces of hair self. But that's not what I'm going to do. What we're going to do here, or what is easier to do, is I'm going to grind all of that all that rosemary, that dried rosemary, into a fine powdered dust with my coffee grinder. I'm going to put it in the bottom of my glass jar. This is unground. This is not yet adulterated. I'm going to put it in the bottom of my glass jar. It's going to fill up to about maybe here. And then I'm going to take all 24 ounces. 24 ounces of grapeseed oil is basically the entire bottle when you purchase grapeseed oil over at Walmart. It's the whole thing. That's going to fit in this 32-ounce glass jar absolutely perfectly. It's going to fill it all the way to the top. Here's our infused oil right here. It's going to fill it all the way to the top, and then you're going to shake it up, and then you're going to set it over in your crock pot, or you could put it in a pot on the stove in 3 inches of warm simmering water. Does not have to be boiling. Matter of fact, I recommend it's not boiling because you don't want to lose your water. But you're going to put your crock pot on warm, and you're going to let it sit in about 3 inches of that hot water in the crock pot, and you're going to leave it overnight. In the morning, you're going to take it out and set it on the countertop, and you're just going to leave it alone and just forget about it and go off and do your day. And it's going to cool down to room temperature on the countertop. And then a few hours later, you're going to come back and you're going to set it back in the crock pot. And you're only going to leave it for about 3 hours. Each time, shake it up, move it around, get that oil moving around. And then do that in 3-hour intervals for the rest of the day. Now, what we're doing here with changing the temperature so drastically in short amounts of time is we're breaking down that plant material. It's just going to start just falling apart, but we've already mostly broken it down by grinding it down into a powder. So you've got good surface area that's already, the oil's completely penetrated. And so once it's cooled down the final time, we're going to transfer it into another glass jar by separating out all that rosemary material. We don't want any of our plant parts in our oil because, in fact, the plant pieces will attract bacteria, that'll attract mold, the little animalitos are going to want to eat the rosemary just like you like to eat the rosemary. So we have to get that out of there. We just want that infused rosemary extract essence in our oil. So we're going to remove all of the plant material and sieve it all out. As a matter of fact, I've got some linen right here. These linen kitchen towels. They're absolutely beautiful. I got these off Amazon and I got like 30 of them for maybe 10 bucks. I feel like they work better than the cheesecloth. The cheesecloth I tend to throw away. I just don't trust it over time. And then these can be rewashed and whatnot. So we're going to sieve it out. Now, if you have a press, that's great. You're going to get more oil out of it. If you're doing this by hand, you can expect about 13 ounces of your oil back. It's going to be just a little bit over half. And even if you're doing a really great job, oh, that's why I don't use the cheesecloth, is because the cheesecloth isn't, it tends to fall apart if you're really like pressing really, really hard. And a linen towel or a linen cloth is going to like just have more sort of sturdy continuity to it, so it's gonna hold together better. So you can really press that out. If you have a press, you're gonna get most of your oil back. If you're just doing it by hand, you can expect about 13 ounces. That's to be expected because a lot of that oil is gonna stay in your rosemary. But again, if you're mass producing the stuff and you're going, if you're making it to sell, you're gonna invest in a press and you're gonna recoup your oil because we're not wasting any money. But if you're making this for yourself, getting half of your oil back out of 1 bottle of grapeseed oil, which is one of the cheaper oils on the market, is not going to hurt you in any way. So that's what we're shooting for. We're shooting for about 13, 14 ounces of oil because this recipe only needs 9.6 ounces. So we're still good. Now, you have a beautiful rosemary infused oil. Now, those of you who are soap makers out there know, it doesn't matter if it's a beautiful rosemary infused oil, that scent is not going to last. Well, that's not true in lotions and creams and hair oils. That scent is going to be now a part of our formula. We're not saponifying this. We're not pushing it through a chemical process like we do when we're making soap. So the scent and the smells are going to translate. Another reason why I didn't choose some of the other potential hair growth herbs. That's why we chose rosemary, because it's going to be very, very complementary to the lavender essential oil. When we combine those two together, they're going to smell absolutely heavenly. And when you're rubbing that into your scalp, you'll remember that throughout the day, that it smells so pretty. So now we've got our infused oil. And what we're going to do is we're going to take that infused oil and we're going to put it on a hot water bath. So you can get a skillet and a glass bowl, and you're going to take your oil and you're going to put it into a hot water bath, and you're going to start to raise the temperature. Next to your hot water bath, you're going to put a smaller bowl where you're going to put your 2.4 ounces of lanolin, and you're going to melt that lanolin down. Now, lanolin has a melting point of about 100 degrees, so you don't have to get things too hot in order to get these two parts combined. But the important part in this entire formula is getting that CBD isolate powder blended down into your oils. CBD isolate powder has a melting point of 151 degrees. If you do not reach that mark, that temperature mark, your project is all for nothing. You have a beautiful rosemary oil, which also will help grow your hair, but you want to make sure that that CBD oil, those crystals dissolve. If they don't, if they're just floating, free floating, your dosages aren't correct. You're just not absorbing it into your skin. It's just there. So we need to turn that back into an oil. And so we need to make sure that we get 151 degrees in that hot water bath. And we need to let it kind of stay there for, 2 to 3, maybe 5 minutes, and allow for everything to blend in. You can go ahead and add in, once your lanolin has melted, you can pour that lanolin right into the main dish, and you can just let it sit and blend together. Just give it all the time that it needs. This isn't going anywhere, and you're not reaching temperatures that are going to degrade your oils. We're still well below the threshold of interrupting the molecules of your oils. So 151 is perfectly fine. Now, you can take your time with this, but then you're going to remove the heat. You're going to take your bowl out of the hot water bath. You're going to set it aside, and then you're just going to kind of let it cool a little bit. And then you'll pour in your fragrance oil. You can either put in lavender essential oil, which for this formula I would put in about 1/4 of an ounce, not more than that. Or if you're using a fragrance oil, then you can put in a full ounce, and that should suffice for keeping the fragrance proportionate. Then you're going to, this is not going to firm up, despite the fact that we are using lanolin, and in the study he describes using a paste with the lanolin and the emu oil. And frankly, they put a concoction together that really doesn't, it's not fulfilling any proportions that we as cosmetic makers are sort of like traditionally adhered to. Of course, you know, it's a craft, so you know, everything is a loose rule. But what they did was they took the lanolin and they used the emu oil as just a carrier, and they created a paste out of it. So people were kind of sort of just rubbing that paste into their scalp. Ours is an oil which will glide over your skin much more fluidly. The lanolin's very nice because what lanolin does, lanolin is a wax, by the way, the wax of a sheep, and it's not an oil. And what it does is it stays in place. So when you're using the rosemary infused grapeseed oil and it's nice and thin and it's ready to absorb into your pores, that lanolin is fluffy and it's not too sticky. It's proportioned just enough to give a little bit of a fluff to our formula, but it keeps everything in place so that the oil's not moving around. It's not drawing down your hair. It's not moving through your scalp. It's staying right where you put it, right where you intend to put it on your skin. So that's also helpful in this case. So what we've created here is, by the way, for all of you guys who are wondering, I can't remember if I mentioned this because I've tried this live a few times now, and like I mentioned, I was booted off TikTok earlier for discussing this. This is the greenerlifeclub.com membership that I get this from. It's Essentials Depot. And in my opinion, this is the best quality for the best price with the best sort of production. They've just been doing this for quite some time, and I've had the best experience of being their customer. Saying that, I'm not a promotional person for them. I do not know anyone there. I do not, you know, you can buy it or not. It doesn't affect me. I don't get anything from them. It's not an advertisement. It's just what I buy and how I buy it and what my opinion is on it. That's all. So props to these guys. So again, here's our oil. It's just a nice thin oil. You put about this much on the surface of your scalp where you have a patch that you would like to have more hair grow, and then you just rub it in very nicely. It's nice and thin, as you can see. It's rosemary infused, and that's all you need. You leave it at that. This one bottle is meant to last 2 weeks. 1 ounce should last 2 weeks, 2 ounces per month. And you do it for 6 months, and then hopefully you will have a replication of the people who had the hair growth experience from the case study. Now, we did take some liberties and we did change the recipe, but the important parts are the active ingredient is CBD isolate powder. We must keep it at the dosage that the study did their experiment on, so that we don't have any, the things we don't know could be our enemy, right? So we want to replicate that study as much as possible. And then there are some things in the study that give us a little bit of flexibility for creativity, which I've taken upon myself to explore with our rosemary infused oil. And there are plenty of other studies that we can go into detail that will support some of the things that I've discussed today. So that's our live stream for today. Now, I think I got out everything that I wanted to say just off the top of my head. Now you can kind of see my working process. This is different from the content that's over in the membership section. Over in the membership section, once I'm finished with all of these formulas, I archive them and I create a dedicated tutorial that doesn't do all of this mental gibberish and chatter. It just cuts to the chase and it gives you the information and the step-by-step, of course, a visual demonstration of how I make everything. And actually that video will go up today in a few hours. It's ready to be posted. And all of the printable materials. So there's instructions, there are printable instructions, and also these formulas, and all of the studies that I'm drawing my formulas from. I also have links to every single one of those studies, including the rosemary studies and the CBD. So if you want to go through those and read those yourself, or you can see kind of my thought process and what it is that I'm doing. There's also an open forum available for members, which allows for you to communicate and interact and ask questions and work through your formulas. You're never kind of doing this alone by yourself. Now, next week, we'll come up with a new formula. We'll be doing something completely different. And if you want to come back and revisit this recipe on this live, this replay will be left up for 1 week. So you can always come back and watch this again. You can always come down and jot down that formula. There's no rush to anything. It'll be up for a week. And so you can always keep working on that and pop in. We have a Facebook group, the Thermal Mermaid Bath and Cosmetic Facebook group. You can always pop in and talk about what you're working on over there, or if you have any questions about it. And what else? Where else can you contact us if you want any help or have any questions with this formula? Our website, cottagediy.com. YouTube, I don't really answer too much on the YouTube platform. It just doesn't come across my eyes as much. But the Facebook platform is catch when catch can, because quite frankly, the threads just get they feel like they're just being thrown at me. So I just answer them when I see them, and I lose a lot of them sometimes. But the website and any forums that are posted on the website, I get notifications for all those, so I can see what people are asking and what they're working on. So that could be helpful if someone's trying to draw through this formula or this recipe. But again, this will be up and available all week long, so you can take your time. You're not in any rush if you want to go back and get this recipe. We can discuss it again if you want to. But once it's archived, it will be archived in the members section of the website, along with all the other recipes from the past that we've worked on and discussed and archived over there. So there's a ton of content over there. And then the next formula that we work on, of course, will be, wide openly discussed and free. And I do have to be really super careful, it turns out, because despite the fact that CBD is legal in all 50 states, we are only working with legal ingredients. We're not crossing over into any of the other types of substances, nothing at all. 100% just products that we can buy from reputable soap supply companies. That's it. Despite the fact that that's what we're doing. And I'm really just reading medical literature. And again, I just want to remind people, before I finish with this thought, what we're doing right here at my kitchen table is not science. I don't want people to think, oh, there's this person on YouTube who's doing all these sciencey things. That's not what we're doing here. If we were doing anything that was scientific, we would be in a studio, and which we could do that at another time. Why is it so difficult to talk about it? D-Stash for you says, I'm not sure the answer to that. I do suspect that because these platforms are wider than just the United States, and despite the fact that it's legal here, it's not in other places, and so it's just a wide sweep of regulation is what it is, where we are forced to abide by, say, the regulations in Norway or Denmark or something along those lines, wherever this particular topic is still taboo. And it's just a matter of time before everything catches up, is on the same plane. So I'm guessing it's not, it's certainly not personal. No one's targeting me. It's just I triggered a word over there and they banned me for, they didn't ban me, they just gave me a strike. And we're not allowed to talk about it. So I do have to be careful, and I have to pay attention to those warnings, and it's just what it is. But on my website, we can talk about this all day long. It's not anything that I have to self-censor over. So yeah, so despite the fact that I'm reading you a piece of scientific literature, that does not mean that we are doing science. We are doing art. We are doing things that are creative. We are doing cosmetics. Remember, this stuff is interesting. Reading these papers are very interesting, but you're never making a cosmetic with the intention of practicing medicine. That is not what we're doing. What you do privately, that you do with your friends and family, and what you discuss with them, and what all of you guys agree to as what is effective and works and you have access to naturally, that's 100% up to you. But we're not ever promoting or selling or leading people to believe that we're practicing medicine in any way. That is not what we are doing. Nothing that I'm talking about is medical advice. Everything I'm talking about is a cosmetic meant for being pretty, smelling nice and feeling pretty, right? That's what we do as cosmetic makers. We are not doctors. And so this information is interesting and we can chew on it and we can discuss it and you can even try it and maybe it'll even work like it did for the 35 people in that study. That's entirely possible. But we have to just make sure that we're not leading people to believe something other than what we're directly stating and saying. There's no innuendo. Also, as I'll repeat again, I'm not selling you these. I'm not putting a live stream up to sell these. This is just what I'm working on. It's just what I'm doing. I do have a membership website that is available, and anyone who watches this live stream is more than welcome to come over and come and be a part of our membership. But it is not required to be a part of our membership in order to get the recipes that I discuss on the live streams, which I will do every single time. Every single time that I am presenting or discussing a recipe with you guys or a formula with you guys, I will openly discuss that formula. I'm not holding anything back for the purpose of getting you to come sign up, which you are also more than welcome to do. All right, so I think that will cover our live for today. We've been here 54 minutes and I intended for 30 minutes. So we've extended it out much longer than I suspected I might. And next week, you can join us again. I'm not sure what topic I'm going to be covering for next week, and I'm not sure what day that will fall on. One of the things that I'm doing is trying some different time spots throughout the course of the day, and that is for my own ability to have a peaceful, quiet time slot with the multiple activities that are going around in this little farmstead here. There are lots of people lots of small people who are very active. And so I have to find the time and place where I can communicate with the least distraction. Previously, and what's posted on the website, we do Tuesday nights at 10 o'clock. I probably will pop in next Tuesday night at 10 o'clock, but this live play will be up for 1 week. And that is so that anyone who stumbles across the promise of getting this recipe, like later on, like if they're on TikTok and you don't see this for 3 days, you might be disappointed if you come over to the replay and find that it's already been replaced. So we'll give people plenty of time to get the information that they want. And then we'll replace it next week with a new formula and a new project. And I hope that you guys come back then because it will be an all new discussion. Hey guys, welcome to the live. There's always a few minute delay on my end. It seems like we go live and then it takes me a minute to see what's going on. So we'll do a little bit of housekeeping just to start and see how this works out. I am watching comments. If you are joining us with the live, I'm over at cottagediy.com watching any comments. And shout out to Leslie, who may be on right now watching us. If you're there, then hi. I'm here to say hi to you because I saw your comment posted earlier today. And feel free to interact and chat. You're only able to chat in the comments box if you're a member at cottagediy.com. And this allows me to really be able to see what our community is talking about or how they're engaging and asking questions about the topic without having any trolls. I have tried this in the past few weeks with TikTok Live and YouTube Live and all the platforms and trying to follow comments back and forth, and what I've noticed that ends up happening is I end up missing the comments that are actually real comments as opposed to the troll comments. So I'm going to try to hone that down a little bit by sticking with keeping my eyeballs on one chat room, and the chat room where I know that there's some real people who may be engaging in the formula that we're talking about this evening. Now, tonight's time slot, this Wednesday at 12:45, is an experiment. I'm going to be trying out some different experimental time slots. And it's really never about numbers of people who are watching us. It's really more about when I have the quiet time and space to be able to talk and be heard without being interrupted. I've got an entire family organization going on around me in the rooms around me. So when we can get the quietest time available is when I'll post these live streams. And then the live stream will always replay until the next live stream comes up. So if you do have any questions at cottagediy.com, you can type them into the chat box, and that live stream, that replay, will always be available to watch throughout the week or until the next live. And there are always people that are bouncing around in that chat box. So you do not have to catch this in live time to have any of your questions answered. You can have any of your questions available to post in that live chat box at any time throughout the course of the week. Now, if you're not a member at cottagediy.com and you're watching us on YouTube, or you're just watching on the live stream over at the website, but you're not a registered member, so you can't join in on the chat box, then just be aware that when we go through these formulas, I am giving you the recipe fully in this tutorial, in this chat, in this live chat. So this is not intended to be a bait to get you to go over and sign up for a membership if you're just here for information. And if you're here because you wanted the formula for something that you saw, like for example, if you saw me talking about something over on TikTok and you wanted to bounce over here and see how to create your product, we'll always be giving the formula for free in this chat. Just keep in mind that these live chats are just sort of me talking about side projects and about what we're working on over here at Cottage DIY. These are not the curated tutorials. So if my distractions and my side thoughts are sort of too much to handle and you just want to get down to the nitty gritty and you want the concise information in the form of a clear, organized tutorial, that you will have to go over to the member section and you'll have to find and curate all of the tutorials for the formulas over there. So there's members material, and that's concise and to the point, and that gives you just the straight out information. And then there are these live chats where you will get the information if you can tolerate me for a little bit. But there are a couple of interesting points in regard to the featured ingredient in the formula in front of us. And today what we're going to be discussing are these solid lotion bars, which are fantastic as massage bars that are infused with CBD isolate powder. And I think by now pretty much everyone understands why there's a perceived benefit to CBD isolate powder, and we're going to be talking about those perceived benefits. But I don't want to go any further until I mention that we are not ever making medical claims. We are not claiming that these are curing, healing, taking care of any ailments. You generally already know what CBD isolate powder is good for, and we're going to be talking about the difference between anecdotal claims and what some new studies have shown us that have come out that are published in some of the literature, and some of the concerns that we could potentially have, and some things that that we kind of already knew we knew, but now there are studies to tell us that. We're going to be talking about that in this live chat. That is not to say that I'm creating or trying to promote or sell you any kind of anything medicinally. These are just massage bars, they're just lotion bars, they're just cosmetics, and also I'm not selling these bars to you. I'm just making them, and I'm showing you how I make them and what I think that they can be good for, and some information pertaining to them. So no, these are not for sale. Maybe in another life, at another time, I'll throw up a batch and put them up on my store. But right now, what we're doing today is we're just talking about these. You can get a pen and paper and you can write down the formula if you want, but if you're already a member, then you can just grab the printable materials that are on the page that's already dedicated to this, that has the video tutorial on it. And the link to that is over there in the chat box. Also, the link to that is in the CBD and hemp oil category in the recipe directory. So if you're already a member, then you know how to navigate your way over to the soap making course. Go into the recipe directory, and you can find this listed with all the other CBD formulas. That is where it's located at. There's also a little sort of hard-coded link that you can grab that's sitting in the chat box right now. But if you're not a member, You don't have to go to all that effort. You can just pay attention tonight and listen to what we're working on. So we're going to start off by describing the formula to you. Again, we're working with, these are lavender scented CBD massage bars. And in general, a solid lotion bar is going to have 40% soft oil. I know that kind of sounds counterintuitive because this is just a solid piece of butter, but it's 40% soft oil. So it's 40% of a liquid oil, 35% of a hard oil, 25% of a wax. And in the case of our formula, which by the way, actually is a beautiful formula, we're using 9.6 ounces of hemp seed oil. And the hemp seed oil can be any light seed oil. You can substitute grapeseed oil, you could substitute corn oil or vegetable oil. We want to take into consideration what this smells like. Hemp seed oil is a little bit of a deep, musky, grassy smell, but we're going to cover that with lavender essential oil, and it's kind of novelty. It goes along with the product that we're creating for a CBD hemp seed oil product. So if you don't like the hemp seed oil, yes, you can substitute this out for a soft oil that you like. But in our case, the hemp seed oil works beautifully. Then we want 8.4 ounces of cocoa butter. The cocoa butter is the hard butter that we need to create this lotion bar in exactly the way that it is. You can substitute mango butter. It's hard enough. It does the job. You cannot substitute shea butter. It's just not hard enough, and it won't hold up with this formulation. And then in our case, we're using 6 ounces of beeswax. Yes, you can substitute out for candelilla wax if you don't want to use an animal byproduct, and you can do it the vegan way if you want to. It will make no difference. It will also come out just as fine, but I like the beeswax, so that's what we're using. Now I've also added in 1/4 of an ounce of vitamin E, which gives it that sort of rich, moisturizing quality to it. And in my case, in the demonstration, I'm using 2 ounces of fragrance oil. If you're going to use a lavender essential oil, I would recommend about 1/4 of an ounce. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, a solid lotion bar is going to be a hard butter that's actually going to start to melt when it comes in contact with the heat of your skin. So these are pretty delicate. They're not delicate in that they're not going to fall apart. They're solid pieces that are going to stay solid on you. They're not tenuous. They're not going to fall apart on you. But what they are going to do is they're going to melt when they touch your skin. And even handling them too much is going to melt. And let's see if you can see the effect. This is almost instantly melting on the surface of my skin. And I get this nice slick. So these are perfect for massage bars. And it doesn't really leave any residual waxy buildup. Even though there's beeswax in here, this is going to rub right into my skin, and it's going to be nice and comfortable. So they do start to get oily as soon as you touch them, but it doesn't leave an oily buildup. So that's the formula in itself. Now additionally, I've got 150 milligrams per ounce of CBD isolate powder. So that's 300 milligrams for each bar. The total overall formula that I just gave you is 24 ounces. And if you create 2 ounce bars, which is the perfect size for each one of these, then you get 12 bars and you'll end up with 300 milligrams of CBD isolate powder. So that's the formula, and that's exactly how you make these things. Now, you really don't have to go to all the effort of hunting down a tutorial in order to create these. The most important thing that you need to know is that everything needs to be combined. Essentially, you melt it down and then allow for it to solidify. But everything needs to be combined completely, which means the highest melting point of all the ingredients that you have in this list of ingredients will be the CBD isolate, which has a melting point of 151 degrees. So when you're melting everything down, make sure that you reach 151 degrees for just a minute, stir everything in nicely, and then pour it out into your molds, and voila, you have a perfect, absolutely perfect product here. These are beautiful, beautiful lotion bars. Now, I'm going to talk about when we're using CBD. There are a couple of things as I was creating this that directly came to mind about this product. And also, I'm just going to mention right now, we have some additional ingredients here. And if you followed me over from TikTok, one of the things that I'm working on right now is a hair balm, a hair salve formula, which will be the entire formula I will give you in the next live when we show up for the next live. But we're going to start talking about it right now because these tie in together in respect to some research that I'm pulling up and reading through, and I'm going to tell you about the research in regard to the hair growth serum that we're going to create with our CBD isolate powder, and some studies and information that validates that this is not, it's not an old wives' tale, or it's not just a thing you heard somewhere. There's some science and research behind it. So we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But there are a few bullet point things that I want to mention. Here I have a stack of literature. These are all papers that have been printed from PubMed, and each one of them have a few really valid points that are enough to pay attention to when we're trying to create formulations. And we're not going to go through all of these 10 papers. There's just a couple of points that I wanted to point out that show continuity in some ideas that are backed by other people's research that we should take into consideration before we just start throwing ingredients into our formulations. Now, one of the things, the first thing I'm going to start out is there have been some studies in the last 10 years that we didn't have before. And those studies have been able to gather up other people making their CBD products. Let's organize these out so that I can remember exactly the bullet points that I want to discuss with you guys. We've got safety. We're going to start off with the label accuracy on these two studies right here. Discuss the label accuracy when hemp-derived topical products are available online or in national retail stores. And there have been two studies specifically, one done in 2022, and the other one here is even more recent, I believe, 2023, that discuss people that have been studying, that have gathered dozens upon dozens, that each one of these studies has over 100 examples, where they go to over-the-counter pharmaceutical, CVS is your regular pharmacy chain stores, spas, boutiques, and fairs, and farmers markets and such, and they're purchasing people's privately made CBD products, and also many of them are purchased online. So that means just rando websites and Etsy stores, things like that, where small lotion makers like you and I would be creating their product and posting it on Etsy. And then they've tested all of the CBD amounts to see if they match the labels. And what we've discovered is that almost none of them ever match. Some of them under describe the dosage in their CBD, and some of them over describe the dosage in their CBD. The variations are off by as much as 20%. And so why is this relevant? Well, it is relevant to know that this is something that has by and large been unregulated for the last several years, so much so that it seems like not only are the average small crafters kind of loose and wild with their ingredients that they're putting into their products, but also it does seem like the bigger manufacturers are not really paying attention to their dosage. Maybe there's something that has to do with the formulation, how it's being put together, whether or not it's dissolving properly. There's something going on that makes it so that they don't have to pay as close attention to the dosage and test every single batch that's coming out. So this is just something to pay attention to. But now, if we look even further into that, there's actually something more concerning that's buried in the dosing of CBD isolate when you are the manufacturer, when you are the lotion maker. And that has to do with the sources that you're getting your CBD isolate from. Now, in the 5, 6, 7 years ago, I remember a lot of people being very concerned that they weren't getting pure CBD isolate. And that, of course, is a concern. You want to have your product tested to make sure it's purely what you're buying. And also, the most important thing that we need to make sure is that while we're buying hemp-derived products, that we are not buying anything that has a greater amount of THC than 0.3%, because that's the law. We're not allowed to purchase anything higher than 0.3%, and we're not allowed to sell any of our products that have any CBD in it that has higher than 0.3% THC. So these are hemp-derived CBD products. We are not a pharmacy and we are not a dispensary. That's not what we're doing, so we don't want to be accused of that, and we don't want to participate in doing things we're not supposed to. So it's really important that our products are tested. But something that we should not overlook, when some of the safety tests had happened in regard to the accuracy of the labels, what was discovered was that almost 25% of the CBD isolate powder had a concerning amount of lead in the isolate. Now, this is even more concerning when you consider that a lot of this stuff is meant for the purpose of eating, right? That's not what we're doing, but most CBD product is going to be used for consumption. It's going to be a gummy, a vape, it's something that you inhale, a drop, and the last thing you want to do is consume lead. There's also methanol that was found in these products, which should be no surprise. Methanol is a very simple form of an alcohol, and that's used in the distillery process to extract the CBD out of the other chemical components. So there might be residual methanol. It should be expected. And the third and final thing that was found were pesticides. Pesticides were not found in a great amount. The largest contaminant was lead. I don't know, there were no studies that described how lead becomes a byproduct in CBD, where it's coming from, or the means by which lead gets into the product. It could be in the processing, in the distilling process, or it could be something that was, in the soil that maybe the plant is taking up. I don't know how that works. I just know that was found in some of the testing. So it is worth your while to be aware that that's an issue. By the way, they find lead in chocolate too. That's another thing that's been a sort of a hot topic. So lead can be found in some foods, but while we're creating products and we're sourcing materials and we're sourcing things, it's worth your while to know that that's something that is found as a contaminant, so you can keep your eye open to see if your suppliers are testing for those types of things, because we don't want to rub lead on us, and we definitely don't want to consume lead. And that kind of brings us to the question of how do we know how much CBD isolate to put into our products, to create in our formulations? So the safety profile for CBD is very strong. If I were to say, I've actually written this formula out so that you could do 150 milligrams, or you could do 200 milligrams per ounce, or you could do 300 milligrams per ounce. As time has gone on, one of the trends that we've seen in our CBD products is that the milligrams per ounce has increased over time, over the last 4 or 5 years. And that really seems to be label appeal, because there was a study that was recently done that showed anecdotally, when people self-described if they were getting relief from their CBD products, they described that they got relief, but when the amount of CBD had raised in the product, they did not describe more relief. There didn't seem to be a correlation to the amount of relief, whatever their description, of whether or not it was anxiety or pain or whatever it was that they were describing as their relief. There didn't seem to be a correlation between how much relief and how much CBD that they were consuming. Now that's anecdotal. That is just self-description, and more in the case of topical. Keep in mind, there is an actual medicinal mechanism for pain relief and for a pharmaceutical purpose for CBD. There is a CBD product in oral, I believe it's a pill form, on the market that does correspond to a diagnosis for people who have epilepsy. That does exist. That's not what we're discussing, but this is something that CBD is used for. So more and more studies have come out with people's anecdotal descriptions of pain, and more studies have verified that people are getting relief from their use of CBD. So this isn't imaginary, I would suspect, by now, with the information that we have. It doesn't necessarily mean that someone who describes pain relief from a topical is getting it. It could completely be psychological, but also it may not be psychological, and that's really what these studies are suggesting. Again, we're only using a topical. Now, when we talk about safety profile, this is kind of going a little bit off track, but I just want to mention, because this is a common question that comes up, that when you're putting a topical CBD on your skin, zero amount of that CBD is going into your body. None of the lotion, none of the cocoa butter, none of the hemp seed oil, it's not going into your body. So you have no worries. You do not have to even consider the fact that CBD is going to be in your bloodstream. As a matter of fact, this has been tested. There was a fellow. This was tested, by the way, more reasonably. This was tested with THC, right? Because there was a fella who showed up in this study here, March of 2017. So it's not even a new test, but a new study. There was a fellow who showed up to court, and he claimed that he was using a topical THC product by prescription. That's why he was positive for a drug test. And, it triggered the interest of someone to actually study this. They put out an entire study, and the conclusion they came up with was no, that's not true. THC does not, topical application of THC containing product is not able to cause positive cannabinoid findings in blood or urine. Same goes for CBD. Although no one's testing me for CBD because it's rather benign and it's not an illegal substance, so that's not an issue. But what I'm saying is, it's not crossing into your body. CBD is, when it's put on the surface of your skin, is responding to an endocannabinoid system that your body has, that has receptors on the surface of your skin that then sends signals and messages through your body to your brain or whatever part of your body is being affected. So there is a medical explanation for why CBD works, but it is not the same as consuming it. Rubbing something on your head is not the same as consuming it and orally ingesting something. Those are different mechanisms. So why would it be relevant when we're creating and formulating our creams to know that people don't seem to have a perceived benefit, a greater perceived benefit, if we're adding more CBD isolate powder into our creams? Well, the answer to that is obvious. It's because we don't need to waste our product. We don't need to add more CBD in if the same amount is giving someone the same effect. And as time goes on, it does appear that the increased amount of CBD that goes into a lotion or a cream might just be for label appeal. It might just be when someone reads it on the label, they're like, oh, this one has 600 milligrams and that one had 800, and I want the one that is more because I'm getting more for my money. And, cosmetic makers can put more CBD in because it has become less and less expensive over time, and you can actually get a good resource over at Essentials Depot, which in my opinion has a well-tested supply for the best price. I'm not selling it, and I'm not a membership. I don't have any, reason to promote them. It's just a good product to buy from a good company, and so that's one place where you could get your source from. So that's one reason why we keep the dose where I've kept the dose, because it's tested that people claim that they have a good perceived benefit at 150 milligrams per ounce, and once we're reading through the literature, it does look like it's not necessary to continue to add more. Now, if that's what you want to do, it's not going to harm you. It's not going to hurt. The safety profile of CBD is excellent. There are no adverse side effects, and you're not doing anything harmful by putting in 300, 500, 600. These are all creams that are going to be used, hopefully not, once you go through 2 ounces of it, you're done. You can't use it every single day for 5 years. So it's not something you have to worry about. Now that I've said that, I just want to add in a couple of caveats that, again, will support the idea that you do not want to put in too much, or you do not want to add in much more. The fact that we have a great safety profile just means, so far out of the tests that have been done, there's no adverse reaction. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's no adverse reaction. You have to keep this in mind. We always have to be very modest when we make our assumptions and come to our conclusions when we're thinking about sort of things regarding science, and we have to stick to what we just know for sure. What we know for sure is, based on the tests that we've read and based on the information that we have, there are no adverse side effects. But there's always that you don't know what you don't know element that you have to keep in the back of your mind. And so would there be a reason to just keep piling more on if we don't necessarily, piling more ingredient on if we don't necessarily know that it has any benefit? Because if there's a chance that there's something that's a disadvantage, do we want to take the risk? And again, in the case of CBD, it's probably fine. I wouldn't worry if you wanted to put in a tremendous amount in your personal supply. It's not something, it wouldn't be the first thing that I would be concerned about. So what what potentially could be an issue. And that leads us to what we're going to be talking about next week, but there actually is something that we want to be very careful of. So we'll get our dosing out of the way, our safety. Oh, another quick side topic. When I discuss how CBD does not transfer into your skin, that doesn't include things that are medically created to be transdermal, right? There are products out there in the world that are meant to absorb into your skin. Those are drugs, those are medications, they're pharmaceuticals. That's not what we're talking about, that's not what we're doing. So if you come across something, specifically here I have the safety, a safety profile of a mouse study using specifically transdermal CBD. They created a product specifically so that it would go through your skin, so that they could test it and then check the safety profile of it. It did come up with some questions. The questions happened to be, the questions only were that there was no real understanding of what the bioavailability of absorbing this. So despite the fact that they created a transdermal product, it still wasn't clear how much of that was being sort of soaked in or absorbed by the mouse, right? So no adverse side effects. Yet again, there seem to be no allergies. There seemed to be nothing going on that's going to cause any concern. But I just want to make the differentiation that when every now and again when you come across a test or a study like this, that doesn't mean that our creams are going to go through your skin. Ours are not going to go through your skin. That's not the same thing that they're talking about here, even though the safety profile was great. So that's going to take us to what we're going to lead into for next week. I'll go through this formula again if you're catching into this live stream and you didn't grab the formula. I'll talk about it again before we end. But in next week's formula, in next week's recipe that we're going to be discussing, we're going to be discussing two studies that came out of the Tampa Bay area over at St. Pete Beach. And there's a doctor down there by the name of Gregory Smith. And in 2021 and 2023, he created a salve or a balm that was placed on the head of his patients at a hair and laser center that was infused with CBD. It was CBD lanolin, and he used emu oil, which I'm not a fan of. I get that he did it for the purpose of the sort of paste that he was creating. Many reasons why I would not use emu oil, and that was not relevant to this particular study, or it's not discussed as being relevant. There are, however, some other things that I would add into my personal formula that also promote hair growth. But what he discovered was that the small amount of CBD in the salve, so the study includes 30 people, the very first study includes 30 people. He gave each one of them a small 2-ounce container of this balm that he made up that had 3 to 4 milligrams per day. So it was about 100 milligrams for a 2-ounce container, with the intent that the patient would go through it in 1 month. And they would take a little bit of this oil and they would rub it on the surface of their skin where they had alopecia. All of the individuals in the study were diagnosed with androgenetic alopecia. So everyone had hair loss from the same reason, which is basically hormonal changes, change of life. People are over the age of 35 mostly, and up until their 70s. So no one's a burn victim, no one has an actual, another disease, no one has had anything happen to them that made them lose their hair. Everyone has the same diagnosis. It's just the regular, general stress, hair loss kind of a diagnosis. And they rubbed this on their head, and after 6 months of doing this every single day, what they discovered was that these people had their hair grow back 100% of what was already their baseline. So does that mean that everyone's hair grew back entirely? Some people had entire coverage in this study. Some people had their hair grow back. It doesn't mean that everyone's hair flourished and grew back as if they were 14 years old. It means that if the person had 25 hairs in one square centimeter and 25 new hairs were seen after, they then had a total of 50 hairs after 6 months, then they had 100% regrowth, right? So this doesn't mean that everyone had all their hair grow back. But I'll tell you, if you're a person who only has 18 hairs, wouldn't you like to have 32 instead of 8, in 6 months? So every single person who participated in this study reported that they were happy with the result. They went from either happy to very happy with their result. And of course, some people had a tremendous amount of hair grow back. Not everyone was absolutely bald. Some of the women just had a thinning of their hair, which means, you may have had a patch of hair with 200 hairs able to be counted in a certain square area, and then if 200 continue to grow back, your hair is filled in. So every person was different. We'll go through this study and I'll go into more detail about it. But after 6 months, all of the people reported more success in their hair growth than any of the other products that are known, that have been studied and approved to grow hair, that exist on the market today. Now here's where we're going to have a little interesting kind of a twist to it. And of course, we'll take this balm, we'll replicate. I'll go through how they did it in their methods, and I'll show you exactly how I'm doing it, and also how I'm changing it based on the recommendations that are also listed in here. Because some of the other things, the other herbal types of things that we already know promote hair growth and help with androgenetic alopecia, particularly rosemary infused oils, that we have access to as herbalists and as lotion makers, don't work the same. They're not working on the same mechanism that the CBD does, which means you can combine these two things and they're both working together. And it creates what they call a synergenic sort of combination for your formulas that you can create. And then with CBD, I believe it's known as an entourage effect. So when you have one compound that does something that promotes, say, hair growth in this example, and then you have other compounds that work differently but also promote hair growth, and you start to combine them together, we have what they call the entourage effect, and so you get this more robust flourishing. So that is suggested as a possibility in this paper. That could be something that could be discussed, or it could be experimented on in the future. However, we're going to do this in our formula. We're going to put these things that we already know about. And just as to back up when it comes to the topic of hair growth, just a little bit, excluding the conversation with CBD, the two products that are on the market that are known, that are FDA approved and known to increase hair growth, are minoxidil, which you're probably familiar with. That's something that is now over the counter. It used to be a prescription. It is a chemical. It does have side effects. Some people think that the side effects are just enough for them not to want to use minoxidil. But it's in the form of a shampoo that you can get over on your store shelves and at Walmart. And the other one is called finasteride, which is an oral medication, which is by prescription only. And there have been some side effects and usually it's men that are given the prescription of finasteride, but there have been some side effects that are enough that have made them stop taking that medication. It wasn't worth it to them just to grow their hair back for what they were experiencing. So those are pharmaceuticals and chemicals. Infused rosemary oils have been tested in comparison to minoxidil and have been shown that they are just as effective after 6 months treatment of just massaging a rosemary infused oil into your scalp. So that's an interesting thing that we could combine in with the CBD. The two studies that I show here, that I'm reading to you here, are far, far more effective than any of the finasteride, the minoxidil, or the rosemary oil. This has a much greater result in replacing hair. Now, I'm not making that claim. I'm just telling you what the study says. I won't know until I've tried this myself for the next 6 months, and we're gonna take that journey and we're gonna work on that. The formulation is very easy. Again, we're gonna go through that in our next live. It won't be today, but we're just discussing that these things exist. Now, here's a little bit of the twist that we'll get back to. The paper also goes in to describe that you have receptors in the surface of your skin that affect your hair follicles, and we're going to be stimulating that and interacting with that with the CBD. But the CBD also has another compound in it, or another receptor can be affected by the CBD, and that receptor is also known to stimulate the life cycle of your hair, which could actually make your hair fall out. But that receptor will not be stimulated unless you're using a higher dosage of the CBD. So in an interesting turn of events, we've just discussed how you could just pile in all of your ingredients as much as you want, and there's really no disadvantage to it unless we don't know what we don't know. now comes along a study that suggests if we add that the CBD is beneficial for something that's very desirable for people, but if we go overboard and we use too much, you might get the reverse and opposite effect if you want that you would be looking for, and your hair might fall out. Now these numbers are actually much greater. So in the case of our hair balm, we're going to be using 3 to 4 milligrams per day. But if you were to go up as far as 80 milligrams per day, like a tremendous amount, and that would bring your overall like 2-ounce jar up to like a couple of grams of CBD, which we have no intention of doing. It's just an example that adding more is not always beneficial. And we didn't know that. We would never have guessed that until these studies came out, where this doctor has deduced this from his knowledge of activating other types of receptors in the skin. I don't want to get too complicated on it, but what I'm saying is as time goes on and as we get more information, we don't really want to be just throwing darts with a blinder on when it comes to just adding extra ingredients into our formulations, thinking that the more we eat, the more we consume, the better off we are. We just get more happiness out of. It doesn't necessarily work that way. It might work that way in many cases, but it doesn't necessarily work that way, and we shouldn't be doing that if we don't know what the final result is. Obviously, we do know what the final result is once more and more people try these things and document them appropriately and study them appropriately. But for people like us who are not researchers, who are not, trolling through every single day and doing these clinical studies the way they're supposed to be done with the proper background and education, then we don't know until someone else does the test. So those are the tests that have come out. And by the way, this test was done twice. It was done in 2021. It was again done in 2022. I'm sorry, 2023, just this past year. And the doctor had created more precision testing. He kind of honed in on specific CBD chemicals. There are a set of compounds called varins that he wanted to test. And the conclusion was that he actually got a better result in his second testing. And I have some questions about the comparison of these two, which we'll discuss. We'll go into detail. He claims that he got a better result on the second go round, and I'm wondering. I have questions about that. To me, they look about the same, and I'm sure, I'm just a layman, but I see some things in there that I would ask if he were in front of me. So this all looks very promising and very good in respect to the formula that we're going to be working on next week. But again, those are the things that we wanted to hit today. How we think about our dosages when we're adding in the amount of CBD into our products. And you don't have to agree with me, because this is all, this is all artisan craft. And again, we are not practicing medicine here. So these are all just interesting things to talk about. But at the end of the day, we're just making beautiful smelling creams and lotions, and that's how they're marketed and that's how they're communicated to people. But the perceived benefits of these things extend out into lots of interesting side topics, and some people swear by them. And as the medical community has caught up over time, you can expect that we will only get more and more information that rolls out. So again, all really interesting stuff. I'm going to end the live stream now, and catch up with me in the next few days when I go over the full recipe of our salve and our balm. We'll talk about how we're going to add this, and you'll have that recipe. Again, if you missed the formula for the lavender massage bars, for the solid lotion bars, it's 24 ounces, a total of 24 ounces, with hemp seed oil being 9.6 ounces, cocoa butter being 8.4 ounces, beeswax being 6 ounces, a quarter of an ounce of vitamin E, quarter of an ounce of a lavender essential oil, or if you're using lavender fragrance oil, you can put a full 2 ounces in there. If you're going to add any coloring or mica, you want to keep it under 2 grams, because this is obviously going to be rubbed onto your skin, and you don't want any wild colors transferred onto your skin, unless you're using gold, in which case you can make it a gold shimmer. And then with our CBD isolate powder, we've got 3.6 grams. To give you an idea of how much that is, this is a 10-gram container. And so just at 1/3 of this product would go into the entire batch. And that will break down to 150 milligrams per ounce or 300 milligrams per bar. Each one of these is 2 ounces, so you can get an idea what 2 ounce looks like. It's perfect to hold in your hand. You want to package these in wax paper or in a tin so that they don't melt. They will melt under high temperature. They will melt if I just hold it in my hand long enough. This is going to be nice and slick and slippery. And then I'll have that oil that will transfer right onto the surface of my hand. They will not melt if they're just simply sitting here on my countertop at room temperature. They'll last forever. They're not going to go anywhere. They've been sitting out for a week now because I've been photographing for a while. So these are pretty solid, sturdy little products. But the moment you touch them or the moment they heat up too hot, then you're going to have some sticky, melty oils on you. So that's it for this particular product. I hope you guys touch base for the next live when we'll talk more about the little side details of some of these ingredients. And if you want to come back and you want to get the printable materials, the instructions, the download, and the formula as it's printed out like this, then you can get that over in the hemp seed oil, cannabis, and CBD category. That's its own special category over in the recipe directory in the soap maker, in the soap course. The other thing that might be worth mentioning before we leave tonight is you see how this formula is printed out. If you want to make any substitutions, you can go right over to the lotion calculator. You can take this formula and you can plug in your substitutions into the lotion calculator and have another one of these printed out exactly in the same way to keep for your own records. So that's always an option too. But this particular combination is beautiful. It's probably the perfect solid lotion bar as it is. And there's no need to make any substitutions if you're satisfied with these ingredients. We'll see you guys next live stream. I will post the schedule for the live stream on the calendar at cottagediy.com. And again, if you're watching this replay and you're a member, remember this replay will play probably for about the next week or so. And feel free to pop any questions at any time throughout the course of the week in the chat box, because that way we can see what you have to say, your comments, your thoughts, and your ideas, and say hi. All right, guys, we'll see you next time. Hey guys, I just turned off the. Hopefully, I can see the chat tonight, but I'm gonna have to move it so the feedback isn't gonna be bothering you. And I'm gonna zoom in a little bit because I see that the. see that the camera's a little bit crooked, and I don't actually think that there's much I can do about it, but I think I'll try. Does that help us at all? Does it give us a little bit of a relief? All right, welcome into the live tonight. And I will have to mute all the sounds so that they're not disrupting us. Okay. Tonight we're doing bath crayons for Thermal Mermaid. Ooh. Let's do one more mute here. That will work. Hi, Judy. Well, I'll tell you what, the live streams are not exactly as curated as the tutorials because I'm just sitting here setting up, and I'm just gonna do a little bit of a casual chat, show you what I've been working on. And this will, instead of doing the edited cut and dry tutorials, this kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of the process that I'm going through while I'm creating one of these formulas, so that you can see kind of what I'm thinking about while I'm putting these together. So what I'm not ever doing is just imagining a formula, filming it, and then throwing it out there. I'm actually testing out a lot of these things over and over again, and we tweak them as we go along. So sometimes you'll see that the formulas will change. And I am going to make an attempt at, my cat just bumped into the camera. I'll be watching the live chat tonight on cottagediy.com. That's the chat that I'm kind of looking at. That's when I saw Judy pop in and say hi. And I will try to take a peek into the YouTube version. We're not running on the TikTok tonight because it's just too much. And this way I can keep my eyeballs on one chat room, and I won't miss so many people. But tonight we're going to be making bath crayons. And I've got in front of us all the notes through 10 versions of different types of formulas of how we created these. And I'm not going to actually bore you too much with going through every single one of these formulas, but we did come up with an 11th formula that combines the best of these. And I'll show you what we've got when we start working with these. But what I modeled this after, when first of all, I saw bath crayons posted on the internet. They've been on the internet for, I don't know, since the earliest post I found, I think, was 2006. And of course, obviously, there are products that you can get through just your regular Walmart and Target for children's, in the children's section. They're not super hard. Some of them do come with a process of chemicals. These were up in my granddaughter's collection of bath things. And these come from Tubworks. There's no ingredients on them. And when I start playing with these, so these are the commercial versions. These are the ones that you would buy at the store. When I start playing with these, the first thing you notice, they color really, really well. They're really soft to the touch. They get on everything. This is not something that I could just hand a 2-year-old and let her play with. You really do have to supervise. As you can see, the color transfer is pretty good. They're basically like a softer version of a regular crayon, and they're much messier. You can draw on your skin, draw on your face, and you can draw on the ceramic of the bathtub, and it wipes off pretty easily. These are a little messier than what I would like to have sort of just give a 2-year-old to play with. I can't give these to her when she's not in the bathtub because, you know, she can walk away and draw on the furniture, and it does wipe off. It's fairly easy to clean. But we wanted to come up with a natural version of this that we could make for the kids. And it turns out that you'll find a handful of these recipes on the internet. Some of them are super good and some of them not so much. What I've done is I've taken the base ingredients that I could find, combined them together. I didn't come across a formula at all. I just came across people talking about the ingredients that they were using, and it's all, if you're a soap maker, it's all common sense stuff. There's no surprises in here. But and what the other thing that I did was I refrained from any of the formulas that people sell. There are a few of those floating around out there. I did not venture into that territory, partially because I don't want to be influenced. I also don't want to I don't really, like, if anybody has some really fantastic ideas that they came up with, I don't want to be invading on other people's proprietary stuff. But mostly, I didn't want the bias to set in of what's already sort of canon and what we can use. I didn't want to I wanted to be able to exploit my creativity and come up with different ideas about what we could work with. And what I discovered was not remarkable, but really flexible when it comes to these formulas. So first off, what we've got going on is we've got a butter, a wax, and basically a stabilizer in a very small percent. And then there are different sort of shoot off ingredients from there. Now here in front of us, we've got 10 different formulas. Let me just move this around so you can see these. And I'm going to show you what works, what doesn't work as well, and why. And then that way, after I give you the very best version of the formula that I think works, you can decide for yourself how you want to formulate these, the combination of these things. You've never heard of tub crayons, Judy? Well, welcome to tonight's live. We're actually going to be doing this for March. Tonight's version are the non-soap versions. So these are the wax versions. These are basically like a toy you could give your child and just let them go. In many of these cases, these are basically just crayons that write on ceramic. But in next week's version, we're going to be doing the melt and pour soap version of the crayons. And then following that, we'll be doing the cold process, the actual soap version of these crayons. So they're all a little bit of a different product. This one, I think, is the easiest for little kids because you can kind of give them to them and just let them play, and you don't have to worry about them getting soap in their face and eyes and whatever. So out of this combination, the most practical ingredients, and by the way, I will have this all written up and with the notes and the formula written up over in the bath goodies section over at Cottage DIY. I started to create the page for it. It's over there. There's a sort of a bookmark page you'll find if you're a member over there, and you go into the bath goodies section, you'll find the bath crayon page already built, and I still have to upload my formula and ingredients. That'll go up in the next few hours. But these products that you're seeing in front of you have been made within the last 48 hours or so. I've actually been kind of just slowly plucking through them over the course of the last couple of days. And what we've got are cocoa butter, mango butter, different versions of them in different amounts. And we've got emulsifying wax, we've got some beeswax in some of these, and then we've got stearic acid. And then I came across a couple of people on the internet from decades ago talking about adding in some kaolin clay. I misplaced my kaolin clay, so I did try a few of these with some bentonite clay to see if we could get some different textures, and I'm going to tell you now what I've come up with. So the very first out of all of these formulas, not including these, this is our final one. This is the final version, and what I think is going to work the best. But out of all of these formulas, this one here was the very best one. The color transfer is fantastic. You can see right here. I'll move this over so you can see. It colors really well. I have something here that sort of would replicate maybe some bath tile. And I'm not sure if the camera's picking that up, but you can color on it. You can color. Now, it does come off on my hands. It transfers. It's got a little bit of a slick to it. This was made out of 0.6% cocoa butter, 2% emulsifying wax, 1% stearic acid, and 1% bentonite clay. Out of all of the clay versions, and there are people who were swearing by it, saying that it worked real well, there's nothing in here that makes me feel like the clay is actually changing the texture or improving the product at all. In fact, in many cases, like in this one, or in this right here, the clay kind of settled in. I didn't mix it very well. And it kind of settled into places, giving a little discoloration. My gut feeling is that the clay itself didn't improve the product for specifically these non-soap bath crayons. So despite the fact that several of these have clay in them, that wasn't anything that went into the final product. So the very best one was a cocoa butter, leaning more toward cocoa butter and just a little bit of emulsifying wax. The very next one was the electric bubblegum. That's what this color is, from Brambleberry. This one here had a fantastic color transfer, almost identical electric bubblegum, almost identical. This version here was 0.4%, 40% cocoa butter, 40% emulsifying wax, 2% stearic acid without the clay in it. This one actually, the color transfer was better here. The texture is better here. It's got less of a slick to it. And that's because it's got a higher wax content. And it came out almost identical to this one. This one here is a little messier. This one here is better. So, by the way, who knows what's in this product? There were no ingredients listed on the packaging, and I went on the company website and couldn't find it. So I have no idea what chemicals are in this. So if choosing between this one and this one, which are completely identical, and these are not as sort of messy for little kids to be handling, they also transfer pretty well on the ceramic, and they wipe off and they clean off real well. So this one here is 40% cocoa butter, 40% emulsifying wax, 20% stearic acid. That one also, this was my second top one. The third one down here was the neon green, which is radioactive. This is Mad Mica's radioactive.